Okay, I think we can begin. Roll call and determination of quorum. We have 5 full members here, so we have a quorum. Number 2 is the Pledge of Allegiance. You'll join me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next up is the acceptance of the prior meeting minutes. Anybody have any comments on the minutes? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve as presented.
I'll second.
Motion and a second by Juliet. Any other comments, discussion? Seeing none, raise a hand to approve. Unanimous, 5-0. Next is amendments to the agenda. Anybody want to make an amendment to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to continuing business. Oh, I guess I should have announced it. This is actually a special meeting, continuation from April 10th meeting where we didn't finish the agenda, and so this is a special meeting. So continuing business, old business. First up is conditional use application for Maine Custom Woodlands LLC to expand a business at 1326 Hallowell Road, map 8, lot 12, and public comment will not be taken. Come on up. When you come up, do a couple things, please. Your name, your address, who you're representing, if you're the owner or otherwise, and pull the mic close to you and speak into it.
So I am Eric Doobie, a professional engineer with Trillium Engineering Group, and we are located in Yarmouth, and I am representing Tom Cushman in Maine Custom Woodlands, who's the owner. I'm sure he'll be here in a few minutes.
Okay. If you would you, George will have him do an introduction to the project, and then you'll give us your comments? Mm-hmm. That sound fair? So there's somebody walking in now. I don't know if
That's
it's
the owner.
That's him? We'll
Yes,
give
sir.
him a second.
Started with only 2 minutes late, sorry about that.
Name, address?
It's pretty, we're getting ready to vote to turn you down, so.
Excellent. Great
All
news.
right, if you would you please state your name and who you represent and your address?
Yes, Tom Cushman, Maine Custom Woodlands, 1326 Hollowell Drive, Durham.
Okay, and you are the owner.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is, whichever he wants to do it, give a presentation on your project, covering the highlights. Then Mr. Thabarge will join in, give his comments as the town planner, and then the members of the planning board will ask you any questions or whatever. You were at the town hall today, weren't you?
I was, right next to you.
That's right. Good thing I didn't see
You were
any-
looking for highlighters.
Yeah, I didn't even, yeah, I did. And they gave me pink, so I'm just cheap. Anyway,
I'm gonna let Mr. Cushman start and just give you a little background of his
Please.
existing business and what his plans are.
So currently, I operate Maine Custom Woodlands and MCW Trucking out of our facility on Route 9. And it's a 7,600 square foot maintenance shop and office. And we store some wood there, and our equipment there, and that's kind of about it, I guess. Nothing crazy, but what we'd like to do is build another building and install a small sawmill inside and operate that.
okay. We'll discuss it further. So if you want to just kind of talk about the project and.
Can do on that. So, basically, this is, I know Durham doesn't have a lot of commercial uses, but this is a commercial use that's kind of in probably a perfect area, surrounded by CMP and also by some gravel pits and on Route 9. So Tom's got access for his truck routes and the ability to have the road to be able to handle those trucks is perfect, which is why he purchased this piece of land. So the building, existing building sits off the road quite a ways and is buffered by kind of woods and the power lines on one side, and then of course woods and the roadway on the other side. And so he parks his trucks out there now. He has some, essentially some piles where he'll do some chipping and this and that for some miscellaneous wood or ties or things like that. And once in a while, haul skidders in to be repaired at his shop. And then he has the office area that's attached to the front of that shop, and he's gonna continue to use that building as is. So with the new building, which is the 6,000 square feet, he's essentially purchased a lumber or sawmill, which is not gonna be as big as the sawmill in New Gloucester. What's that again?
Yes, Machino's lumber.
Machino's,
It's not-
thank you.
Not
Yes.
quite that big. We're not gonna be a Hancock lumber or
No.
an Irving or anything like that. It's just a
So-
smaller mill.
Yeah, so the plan is really to sell it to wholesalers and be able to utilize that. There's a market for that, especially in the economy that we have today, and be able to work within that. Doesn't really have the power. I mean, even though the power lines are right there, it can't make the adjustment without putting in a huge power reduction.
Power station of
Power
sorts.
station, yep. So that's why we're using, looking at using a diesel generator for that specific new building on that, because you need three-phase power specifically for this. So, not adding any bathrooms in that specific building. And so essentially, I mean, it will increase the employees and a little bit of traffic, and of course the truck trips, as you can see in that. And essentially, the way that it functions now, and Tom added a truck scale in there, is gonna be able to utilize that. It'll be behind the truck scale. You can see the plans that were there. And he'll have plenty of maneuvering area around that. And he's got some good compacted gravel. We got a good slope there for drainage that we're looking at adding in a retention pond, or essentially a treatment pond on that, which is what we like to do. And I know this is a little fuzzy, but forgive us, but that treatment pond is essentially on the low side, and that truck scale is here, the building is here, office space, and then the maintenance. Thank you. And then, of course, this is the new building that we're talking about over in this section here, so. and we
And the generator is just to the top of that?
That's
Generator.
that small rectangle.
Yeah, exactly, doing that, so,
And that generator is self-enclosed.
yes.
With sound treatments inside the enclosure.
It's like a trailer, right?
It's on a trailer with sound, I don't know if they call it sound down or what they call it, but it's sound dampening insulation inside the trailer itself.
So that's kind of a summary of this building and the way we're treating the site and what we have for maneuverability on the site and existing parking. Again, this building will be, continue to be for maintenance. And I think you can see, you know, a couple just miscellaneous items, I guess 3 to note is one, the traffic that we're generating doesn't kick us over the 100 trips for needing a traffic impact permit for that. And I worked with Bill Bray specifically on some feasibility stuff on that with the numbers. And then the sound is the other issue that we kind of talked about, and Tom was able to go out and him and I talked specifically about making sure we had good sound information to provide to you folks, so that essentially you could take a look at what the decibels are, you know, to the property lines, and what we had for some sources that are very similar, and also with the generator itself. So those were kind of the two big elements that we kind of focused on for this particular use, because those are impacts that can affect some, you know, some neighbors in the town and things like that. So we feel that we're essentially meeting, I guess, the restrictions on those items, and I think that's about it. The only other item to note is the fact that, oh, fire, I'm sorry.
That hurts, Eric.
Yep, sorry about that, chief.
Oh, the lack
So,
of.
yeah, lack of. So these are both pre-engineered metal building structures, so we're not talking about.
Metal inside and out.
Metal inside, yes, so I do structural engineering, so forgive me, I go with the terminology on
Yeah.
that, so, yeah.
Just wanted to
So
clarify.
what that means is they're not framed with wood, or wood trusses or anything like that, so essentially, the biggest issues you have with those type of buildings are the insulation itself. So what we nailed down with the chief was making sure we had, because we're in a rural community, making sure we were addressing the actual fire flow for this site. We didn't have anything in place for the initial building, but in doing this and just going through this and talking to the state fire marshal about this and taking a look at that fire flow, I think we've given you that supplemental information to be able to see with the total square footage of both buildings combined. We fall within that 1,750 gallons per minute for essentially 2 hours or 120 minutes, which is how we came up with what the total gallons required were on that. And then also took a look at the existing pond that we had out front to be able to utilize what, similar to what Durham has utilized, which is a standpipe with filter and use that to be able to address that flow, because of the basically the pumper truck only has so many gallons, so you're gonna need to supplement that with other on-site uses. So in this case here, the pond is perfect for that use. So that's the additional information that we gave. So
Anything else?
I think that's it.
Chief, if you'll bear with us, George, if you want to just kind of give us your report, please. George, Mr. Thabarge is the town planner.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, board members, as I indicated in the agenda notes that I put into your packet, there's a two-step process in this review. The first is determination of whether the proposed expansion of the business meets the conditional use criteria, which are generalized issues of noise, which has already been mentioned, drainage, traffic. So this initial review discusses whether or not either what's being proposed as a project has certain inherent difficulties with it in terms of meeting the criteria, or if the project site is particularly problematic from an environmental standpoint or a traffic standpoint, say it was on the intersection out here, that type of an issue. So the board reviews those general project issues first, and then if you determine that it meets the conditional use criteria, then you look at the specific site design aspects of it. So in terms of the conditional use criteria, this project was approved for conditional use for what's there now in 2009. And the planning board at that time went through that review that I just mentioned and approved the construction of that building and the business use of the property. They're proposing to expand it, both in terms of building as well as in use, which does require a new conditional use review. And under the ordinance, you only look at what's being proposed for change. You don't go back and look at what's there now in terms of your jurisdiction. They are indicating their hours of operation, which is one of the criteria. Will be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. They did discuss the sawmill being powered by an external generator. And I did point out that the submissions are somewhat inconsistent in terms of it describes a building housing the generator is what I read, and then the site plan shows a generator outside the building. But Mr. Cushman has explained that basically the generator itself has built-in sound dampening features. So you just need to, for the record, kind of clarify which is the accurate description in terms of, is it in a building or is it a standalone generator with sound protection? And that should go into your findings. I did mention, it's already been discussed, the fire chief in 2009 indicated that the original building in use did not require any special fire protection measures. The proposed sawmill is a different use that may involve greater fire hazards, and the updated land use ordinance calls for an on-site water supply for all subdivisions as well as non-residential uses like this one. So they've gone through those standards, working with the fire chief, and he's here tonight if you have questions on the fire protection aspects.
Okay, thank you. I guess we'll go to the board, and maybe since Chief is here, start with any questions we might have on fire safety issues. And Chief, if you want to come up, please. Chief Tripp is our chief.
Is the pipe access to the pond, is that installed now?
No.
And will it be installed?
Yes, the fire protection requirements actually will be two hookups to the same pond, two dry hydrants, as we call them.
Right.
One will be on Tom's property, probably behind the lock gate, and one will be closer to Hallowell Road, which the town can use at any time. The pond currently should meet the minimum requirements for fire flow. Just a little background, Tom has come to me, I've done a site walk visit with the owner myself. His engineering firm, we've met here and talked it over. Several phone calls and several phone calls to the owner. So we have no problems with and then the fire marshal was involved for fire flow. So just cleaning up the fire pond, adding two dry hydrants should suffice for fire protection. And we do understand about the generator outside, regardless of housing or not, it's still an exposure. And I believe there'll be an 18-wheeler hooked up outside for sawdust, chips and whatnot. We call that an exposure if it ever caught fire. But there should be enough sufficient water on site to handle it.
Can we just kind of show up there, or can we put it back up, George? I'm sorry, where these two ponds are so that,
It'll be the one pond that's existing.
okay.
I'll get the lights. It's right at the beginning of the property.
And this pond is the wetland, right?
It's an existing pond that's shown as a wet area, but it's the existing pond that's on the property.
But wasn't that a pond that was created?
I think it was created a long, long time ago when, it was Shorty's asphalt plant was up in there and whatnot. And it was created at that time as they improved Cushing Road, they kind of blocked it off.
So is it a man-made pond?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
This is that pond outline that we're talking about. It does not go over the property line, it just ends up being.
So it abuts Cushing Road
Right.
right there. It is right on the edge of Cushing Road.
Yeah.
And the other one is where? The second one will be,
No,
There's no second
so let's
Okay.
be clear about
it's
this.
two pipes.
So one pipe would be access here off of Cushing Road,
I got you.
and then the other pipe would be essentially on this side of the pond.
So two things on that. One, was there like a delineation done on this site,
Yeah, it was a survey.
the survey? And
Yeah.
so is it considered a wetland or is it considered a pond?
Well, it's a man-made pond, so it's essentially a pond,
Okay.
so. So this was from the original survey that we had done way back when.
Okay. And there's enough water in there year-round?
According to the engineering firm, for depth, surface area, taking into consideration ice buildup. Also, recently in town with all the other subdivisions, a normalized hydrologist, if you will, has come up with normal rainfall, supplemental evaporation for the town of Durham, that type of stuff, to see if it would hold enough water year-round.
Okay.
So just to go on that a little bit more, what we did is we essentially had a story pole, and we were able to go out and take some depths around the pond, because that was one of the questions that we had about, essentially the volume for the existing pond, to make sure that we had enough, because we're looking at 210,000 gallons for the total. And so when Tom and I talked, we said, okay, let's go out there and figure out what the depths are around that pond. We are going to, with the detail that the chief and I have talked about, it's a detail that's commonly used in these rural environments, we are gonna have to dig down and then put on a filter, make sure we have that. I mean, similar to probably the one that's on Rabbit Road, you know, what's there. So we'll make sure it's up to snuff, and Tom will do that. I mean, I would say that, so you asked if the one was there. No, didn't need to be there from the beginning,
Right,
at least on the initial building. It does now because of the two buildings and what the fire ratings are. So, you know, I think we would make it contingent that we would put these things in if we were to get approval. So,
And
and
this
it
is-
would be two locations,
2 standpipe locations.
two standpipe locations.
Okay, and did, the one on Cushing is available for the town to use? Would be.
Yes,
With the-
that was the
Would-
discussion. So, the way it would be configured, we would request one on Cushing. So we have two sites, so that you don't have two pumper trucks next to each other, they're not crossing paths, if you will. Same water source, two different hookups. The requirement is at least 1,750 gallons per minute required, but I can only get 1,000 out of the one dry hydrant. So I need two dry hydrants, regardless of if it's the same water source, just to supply the required fire flow, which could be met. That's why the request is for a second dry hydrant.
Well, and then the other half of that is.
Town
We don't,
benefit.
yes, we don't have a lot of dry hydrants around
Correct,
town.
correct.
And-
We have 25, some of them are out of service. This would add one for the property and actually one for that whole side of town.
Yeah, and the reality is that the gate is essentially, you know, back up in this section here. And I know there's a couple rocks here, so you can't get trucks around, but you could have a pumper truck back up here and it'd be able to access this, whether the gate's locked or not.
The gate is just pinned. It's
Yeah.
never locked.
That's
Oh,
true.
okay.
And it's a good point.
And if there was a fire,
Access
it
would be
wouldn't be
available
locked.
24/7.
Yeah, correct.
Does that pond have water year-round?
It does.
Because looking at the air photos, if we look at it, this is 2021. 2023, looks like there's water there. Go back in time, unless you've excavated.
Since 2009, I've never seen that pond go dry.
And did you say that you had somebody look at it as well, that the storage, year-round storage, all that other stuff is available?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
okay.
Regarding, like drainage on the site, I think I read somewhere where it's flowing from the south to the north, or is it the other way, north to the south?
Can we hold that thought
Oh,
just for?
yeah, I was just gonna, it
Go
was
through
related
fire.
to that, I was wondering if that's
okay.
gonna be added or, gonna be used as a stormwater pond as well? Like, is that part of your stormwater management plan?
So no, the two stormwater ponds,
on the other
because
side.
we're trying to get treatment and, we're trying to get storage and treatment.
Yeah.
So the way to do that specifically in those two locations are to have infiltration ponds with the
Okay.
substrate media.
Let's hold that thought if we're
Yeah.
talking, we're
Oh,
just
Yeah,
talking
you
about,
answered my
so
question, so
I've
you're not
answered
gonna
it.
use.
because I wanna throw Chief out of here.
Yes.
Do we have any other fire questions? Well, we have his expertise.
Is there a contingency plan for if the pond goes dry?
If we had an issue where we found that the pond was dry, we have enough room on site to make it a pond that actually has a liner that won't be an infiltration pond. So, and Tom luckily owns excavators with the ability to do that. So if we really needed to, and we found that was an issue with that, we could certainly create a pond over adjacent to the other.
And like I said, since 2009, since I've had the property, never gone dry.
Not that I don't trust anybody, but I think we've had somebody smarter than me has taken a look at it and said there's sufficient, water there.
Depth, surface area, times cubic foot, yes.
Okay. Okay.
And we're doing a site visit too,
Uh,
right?
Well, I'm not planning unless we need to, but right now we're not planning on it.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Chief? The fire chief, basically on fire. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, so we've covered fire. Is there anything else? I mean, well, I'm sure there's other topics that people want to cover.
Yeah, floodplain, so it's, you said it's not in a floodplain, do you have a map Did you do a FEMA check?
I don't know if we did a floodplain check specifically
It's
on
on the
this.
town resource protection map, I mean, on the
It's
town.
not. I
Okay,
can show you the floodplain
okay,
map.
yeah, I was just, okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
We usually check that as a basis of design, I just don't have the information
Yeah.
if you're asking me specifically on
okay,
that, so.
you've confirmed,
Yeah.
okay. And then I am wondering about other, actually, first of all, what is the use that's changing from what it was?
So we're building another building, and beyond equipment storage, maintenance, wood storage, we're building a building to install a sawmill in the building. So we can take logs and create lumber.
Okay, so it's the sawmill piece of it that's
Yes.
changing the use.
Well, and the additional building, I think, was, apparently the additional building was a substantial change and it doubles the building size on the property, so I guess that was part of it as well, but both items.
Okay, and where else are you planning to like impact or put things on the ground, like piles of, I don't know, if you're gonna have like a sawdust compost area or a pile of logs, additional than what is,
So we've been storing logs in that area since 2009. So that's no change. Any residuals from the sawmill, like bark or sawdust, are gonna go directly into a truck.
okay,
And when that truck's full,
goes off
they get trucked off the site.
that, okay.
Or that to eliminate the combustion factor, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, the sound study, do you say, is that in the packet, what you guys did, okay.
Yes, it is.
But I'll take this opportunity to jump on this. You compared, I think, 4 other machinos and a couple others.
Three other
3 other,
sawmills.
and so the standard is 55 dBAs at the property line. And you talk about that for the generator, that the generator, my question is combined generator and sawmill when it's operating.
So the sound studies that I did were the sawmills in operation.
With the generator.
Some of them had generators, some of them had electricity. But it was all the mechanics of all the goings-on, the barkers, the saws, the everythings, that went on during a day's work.
Okay, and so one of them, at least one of the studies did have a generator, because the key is at the end of the day,
So I did a sound study specifically on the generator as well, and I was shocked as to how quiet it was. At 250 feet, we were well below the town standards, and we've got 750 feet from the property line to where the generator's gonna be, and it's gonna be on the backside of the building.
gotcha, but doing the math, is it X amount, at the end of the day, at the property line, you're not gonna exceed 55 dBAs.
Well, at 250 feet, it was 45 dBAs.
Gotcha, well, for the generator.
For the
Then
generator.
sawmill was making.
And the sawmill, the sawmills that I studied, were well below the 55.
Because
And all of that information's in the
I
packet.
gotcha, I'm just getting confirmation on it.
Yep.
Because if it's not, and there's a noise complaint, and it's 60
Yep.
combined, you have to figure out how to do that. But-
Yep.
So you understand the rule is 55 at the property
Absolutely.
line. Okay.
I have another question. Where is the resource protection? Is it on the site?
So the line is,
That's
So
the
that's
aquifer.
Is that the
So
same?
there's resource
Oh,
protection on
you're-
the other half of the property that I own
North.
across the
that's,
power line.
that's
Right.
up here.
So it's
Yes.
not on
Correct.
this piece of it? Okay, I just want to
And
confirm.
is that where the brook trout stream is on the other side?
Oh,
No,
those
that's a
beavers,
secret.
those damn beavers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
not to
killing
waste,
my trees. I've talked
not to
to,
waste a lot of
talked to
time,
the state, talked to trappers, oh.
not to waste a lot of time, because some folks are interested in the Boston Bruins, but, yeah, 2 guys at the end of the town meeting were going fishing and would not tell me where they were going.
I don't blame them.
So, okay,
Maybe
any
trout
goes
in
to
Yeah.
that, I'm sorry.
One other thing is, I know that this is just conditional use, but a wetland delineation, I think we might want to consider having done, so.
We had that done.
Okay,
It's in here.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
part of the survey.
Well, it's added
Or do you have a
to the,
report
it's
too?
added, so for instance, so Mark Sensei, I don't know if you know the name, so Mark Sensei, yeah, so he did the wetland survey.
Okay, and so do you have a report?
I believe we had a report.
Is it Mark
thought we-
Harmon?
No,
What's
since-
that?
Are
No,
you
Mark
using
Sensei,
Yeah, sorry, okay.
C-E-N-C-I.
I get two of them.
So he was out on site. So this is, like this, for instance,
Yeah,
I know it doesn't, the graphics aren't great on this particular screen, but this is part of that wetlands that we're talking about, and I think there was a little bit of area that was over on, just creeping onto our property.
okay, so he did that recently?
Yeah, he did that in.
April? No,
No,
March.
no.
February, March.
Yes.
February, I think.
Okay.
He came around.
Yeah, I'll have to check, but yes. he
Yeah,
did
if
it
you
with
There
could
the-
wasn't
send-
any snow.
If you could send the delineation, that'd be great, the report.
The report.
Yeah,
Sure.
so he delineated that as a wetland or a pond.
Yes.
Okay.
That, it was already delineated before he was involved in that. So
Okay.
for the more recent one, but we wanted him to update because of this right here.
Yeah,
We knew we would be here in front, you know, of you folks, the submission, so we said, Mark, you need to go out and delineate what the wetlands are.
Is that included with the NMI, the MIF and W documents addressing natural resources dated March 4th?
Is that the MNAP that you're talking about?
I think so.
what page are you on, or,
Well, it's item number 8 that was submitted.
oh, okay, attachment 8?
Mm-hmm.
Or 7? Does our GIS show wetlands on this property?
Wouldn't show that detail.
Wouldn't
It
show what?
shows, so the NWI map, National Wetlands Inventory, calls that pond a wetland.
Yeah, but I
And
think
then
it,
all north, like you said, that's wetlands.
On the other
and
side of the-
Yeah, up there is
Yeah.
wetlands, and also south, so the site is somewhat surrounded by wetlands.
I didn't see the wetland study in there, but. Okay, anything else? But I guess what you're saying is your wetlands study calls out that the pond that Juliet's referring to as having been previously a man-made structure.
Right.
Or not structure, but whatever.
Man-made, period.
Thank you. Anything else, Juliet? I'm sorry.
So wait, what you just said is that the wetland delineation report calls out the wetland as
I haven't
man-made?
seen, I don't think I've seen that, but it doesn't, you can have a wetland show on the on the wetlands mapping because they fly over it and see what looks like wetlands, doesn't, you're smarter than I am on it, but if they went out and did the delineation, he should have said this was a man-made pond.
Exactly, yeah, so I'm just repeating what
Yeah.
you said. So that would be great to see if we could see that. And then one other question I have, did you guys have to submit a stormwater permit for the state?
Do we
Did it
need
not
to?
trigger? Yeah,
Yeah, we need to.
okay.
So just to expand on that, does any changes need to be made because of the additional impervious surfaces?
Well, yeah, that's what we're showing as part of the stormwater ponds, treating basically water quality and quantity.
So the docker lines are new grades?
Correct.
Okay.
Juliet, any others?
No, I'm good.
Alan?
Thank you.
No, fine.
Brian?
I'm all set, thank you.
Mark?
Also, thank you.
Okay, I have a couple, if we could. On noise, I already mentioned my concern there. Traffic. You referenced a couple of things on your total traffic. You had, in your cover letter, you have existing and proposed, and I think you are higher than, your proposed, your math was off. And that it's, so, you had 40 trips today, and you're saying 68 in the future, but when you add 30 and 28, I come up with 58. So which one is it? The second page of your.
It's right up behind you, John.
What's that?
It's right up behind you.
Oh, okay. So those two numbers don't equal that number? Or is there some math that I'm missing?
Let's see.
I mean, 68 is good, 50, I'm just asking what, because what I'm gonna ask you is what are you, the number of vehicles you expect or will commit to, and what's driving this is in talking to the road commissioner, he's got a couple of concerns, one of which is how many big trucks do you expect to have coming in there?
So,
Yeah,
can I ask a question about the road commissioner? It's a state road.
I understand that, but he has a say in what goes on in the town, so, or a recommendation.
so apparently I had the 6 instead of the 5, so it's 58.
It's actually 58.
Yeah, because the proposed, and I know it says existing trips, which I just picked that up too. So the proposed property use, the one on the bottom, encompasses the existing and the proposed.
Okay,
So,
so you're talking about 18, correct math is 18 additional trips with the proposed.
correct.
And 10 of that is cars and pickup trucks, employees, and 2 more big trucks a day?
Correct.
Is that what I'm
Yeah,
reading?
it's not a high processing lumber facility, because the building's pretty, I mean, if you think about it, it's 6,000 square feet. So
And so
50 by 100, so.
you're gonna cut it up, and you're gonna haul it to whoever you're wholesaling it to?
Wholesaling it
Okay,
too,
all right.
that's exactly right.
Okay,
So,
and no, like, Machinos, you can go and buy it from Machinos.
I have no interest
You're not gonna do
in
retail?
I have no interest in people. Let's just say that.
No, Tom would rather truck it off.
Okay, well, that was.
Sorry about the wrong math on the 68. so
That's-
it's
I just wanted to make sure- I mean-
It's even better.
It's even better, so that is the good news.
But you bring up sorry,
Go
I'm
ahead.
not done. So the big road is, or the access that you'll be using is off of 9 Hollowell, right? There is that
Correct.
additional access to the south. Do you use that at all?
No.
Okay.
I created that more for, I think, thinking back a number of years now, more for like a fire protection, like another entrance for
In case,
that. It's gated.
okay.
Well, and thank you, and my question on that piece is, there's a concern, and this is a town road, Cushing Road, and big trucks coming out there, are you willing to commit that there is only an emergency, use?
Yeah, we have never used it for anything.
So if we made that as a condition, that it's only for emergency use, you're okay with that?
I would think that would be fine.
Okay,
He doesn't want big trucks going down there.
yeah, nor does the town, so,
For one, the angle and the, just the roadway itself.
but as you all know, that someday you'll give it to your sons, daughters, distant
Oh.
cousins, you'll sell it, and that person.
Things could change.
Yeah, things, yes,
Things
hopefully
could change,
not
but
in the
they'll be
near
back
future.
here talking to you at that point.
There you go.
I'm sorry, any other, so those I think cover my initial noise we talked about, lighting. There is the town has kind of what I would consider a sort of weak standard on lighting. You're lighting this up with floodlights. What is the light leakage, whatever term you're using at the property line?
I think all those details are in the packet.
Okay.
I don't know about lighting.
I don't think lighting, it tells me what the
LM
lighting.
Electrical sent something that should be in there.
I may have missed it, there's a lot
We
here.
detailed the lights and,
Lighting specs is number 14.
So the issue is that you show some cut sheets for lights, but you don't show where they're gonna be located or the illumination levels of what they'll produce. Can you describe what the lighting is on the property now?
It's building mounted. So basically your typical building mounted, so, you know, if we're talking about dark skies, I can tell you right now, we can take a light meter out there, but we don't have anything over the property line. We're gonna have zero showing there.
So I'm not concerned, there is the cut, as George mentioned, there is a cut sheet, one of the last pages there.
Sure.
That is a downward lighting, which is, and is that, it gets dark, that kicks on, is that the,
yes.
do you have any other, parking lot light kind of things or anything, or is it all just that,
We don't. Whatever's on the existing building is what there
okay,
is.
and it's down,
Yeah.
I'm not coming up with the right term, but it's downcast lighting.
Cut off fixtures.
Thank you. And then my other question is, you say 7 AM to 7 PM, So there's not trucks coming in before the sawmill starts operating
We won't be taking any deliveries.
or
Into
any
the
shipping anything
sawmill.
out?
No, I mean, I don't believe that I've ever had any noise complaint for the time that we've been there, for anything that we've done. But there will be no deliveries, prior to 7 AM.
Okay.
For wood to come into the sawmill.
So basically, your 7 AM, 7 to 7 is all operations.
7 PM is a stretch. I mean, we lay it out there because that's what the ordinance is, right? 7 AM to 7 PM. I would suggest that the sawmill's gonna run till 4 PM.
Okay. But, again, 20 years, Machino's been around a long time, so,
Right.
and I'm picking on them as a perfect example, they're New Gloucester's problem. But, just wanna make sure that down 20 years from now, 30, everybody says, you know, I'm not gonna go 24/7, I'm not gonna do, without coming back here to get additional approval.
Correct. The 7 AM, I think it's a catch-all to get late truck drivers, honestly, for his current business. Or if you have a late truck driver, sometimes you get caught with a machine breakdown or something else. You're just trying to do a catch-all on that, honestly. It's not really the sawmill.
Just to follow up on lighting, is the generator powering all of the power to the building?
Negative.
Just the sawmill?
Just the sawmill equipment.
Yeah.
The lighting, will come off the current electrical. We have two, what the hell do you call it?
Panels.
No, well, they're not two panels, they're just, anyway, we set the whole building up when I built it for two 200 amp panels. We use one right at the moment, so the electricity comes in off of Cushing Road currently, goes underground to my shop. And the lighting and anything that does not require three-phase will be off the current electrical, service.
Which will be underground in the parking lot, because he doesn't want to deal with overhead.
Sure. One more chance.
I'm good for now, yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I think, at this point, are we ready to move on to the conditional use approval of finding of facts? And what I'd like to do is, as we did with the last meeting with CMP and Midcoast, I'll read the criteria and then ask you a question that George has typed up for me here about changes, additions, deletions, and that we'll rather than read each finding. Fair enough?
Yeah,
All righty,
Sounds good.
let us begin. Okay, so, conditional use review criteria. Number A, review criteria, public health impacts. The proposed use will not create unsanitary, unhealthful conditions by reason of sewage disposal, emissions to the air or water, or other aspects of its design or operation. So, are there any additions, deletions, changes to the finding that, the draft finding that is in there? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that the applicant has satisfied the reasonable burden of proof of compliance with criterion for public health impacts.
I'll second.
Motion second, any additional comment? Seeing none, raise your hand to approve. Unanimous, moving on to the next one. There's a whole bunch of these here.
Oh, I've read them.
Okay. And that's just part one, there's a part two that has.
Oh, I know, this part 6, 7, and 8, I'm very sure.
So traffic safety impacts. The proposed use will not create unsafe vehicular or pedestrian traffic conditions when added to existing and foreseeable traffic in its vicinity. And there are two, and I would propose a third finding to
on.
draft.
Sorry to interrupt you, you have two, I have one.
I have one, too.
Where'd you get the second one?
Good.
Are you just,
So I'm looking at two
You
also.
guys looking at the April 24th version? Because I'm looking at what I think.
Yeah.
Should be page 30 in the packet.
Right.
is there two? Or
On
one,
page 30.
George? Finding.
April 24th, page 30 of the packet.
There's
Yeah,
just
do you have
one.
two findings or one?
I have A, there will be an increase in traffic in and out of the existing entrance on State Route 9 by approximately 20 commercial vehicles per week, for about 4 throughout the day. That's right out of their submissions.
So there's
Can you have
two.
a separate application,
Am I looking at the right one? Draft
So-
conditional use.
main custom woodlands? Do you have one?
George,
You
you
have
sent
two.
out another draft
Oh.
Oh, was that the revised one that I?
Yeah.
I'm reading off the revised one.
yesterday, the day
Oh, okay,
before.
I'm sorry, in the packet, I'm reading off the other
Alright.
one.
The second condition
I think
is.
I did,
site
I
distance.
think I did that. Let me get that up, so I'm
So-
on the same page.
Okay, yeah, sorry, can you just
If
give
you
me a
show it.
second to?
So while he's doing that, I will read, I think this, either yesterday or today, George sent out a draft, so let me read the two findings that are there now, and ask the applicant a question about the first one. There will be an increase in traffic in and out of the existing entrance on State Route 9 by approximately 20 commercial, okay, so I am a little bit confused. What is the increased traffic? Is it 20 vehicles
Per week.
per week?
So don't you have to multiply, isn't there a two?
You do
two
times two.
multi-factor?
Yep, for that,
Hold on a second, hold on. Can we bring up the traffic chart again?
please.
Because that's,
That's fine.
I don't like talking in hypothetical, not hypotheticals.
That's what I wanna make sure
but
that,
air, because you may be thinking something different from me.
I'm perfectly happy
I
with
do
that.
that all the time in my job, so.
I am confused on that, the number. I just want to get it right.
My apologies, George.
No, it makes sense to me, I like that too. Pull up the data.
I'm sorry, that's Ruby's.
It's in his application
Yep,
letter,
Yep. Hold on.
Yeah.
and I've got a hard copy here if we need it.
Oh, hold on.
Well, he's pulling it up if you want.
Okay, I've got, it'll come back.
Yeah, so second page.
There we go.
All right, so regular employees or just regular vehicles are 2 trips per day, which is what we're saying. So if we just go to the proposed use, we can go to the existing, but the proposed, we have 15 employees because we're adding 5 employees. Multiplying that by 2, you get 30 trips. A truck is 2 in addition, you have to times it. So if you have 7 trucks times 2 trips per day, you have to multiply that by 2. So, and this was specifically, so Bill Bray of Traffic Solutions, who I work with all the time, he was the one who gave me this, or supplied me with this data, because I was unaware of the same thing. So that gives you the 28 trips, plus the 30 is the 50, the 58 versus the 68.
It's 58, which is 18 more.
18 more.
And so this
Total trips.
total trips.
Again, I'm not a traffic,
I got you.
engineer, but that's how DOT and that's how they look at
I
it.
just want to make it, I'm not questioning the
Yeah.
logic, I'm questioning the number.
Sure.
Just want to make sure we get it right, because if we don't, if you don't, and there's one day, somebody drives by and gets held up for an hour because there's 20 trucks leaving all at once. I just want to make sure that, what we're committing you to is what you say
Sure.
is going to happen. Okay? So those are additional 20s, so and I think maybe everybody has this one, but, so going back to finding A, there will be an increase in traffic in and out of the existing entrance on State Route 9 by approximately 20 trips or vehicles.
Trips.
So there will be an increase in traffic in and out of the existing entrance on State Route 9 by approximately 20 commercial trips per week, or about 4 spread per day. And the commercial is what I'm most interested in, but we could add 10 more employee vehicles. Is that what I'm hearing you say? So we'll cross out vehicles and put in trips.
Well,
I
if we
would
want to be
eliminate
if we want to be clear, yeah, I apologize, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I would eliminate commercial and change 20 to 18 if we wanna make it match up to the math.
I mean, it does say approximately, so 20
That's fine.
is fine. Now, the other thing is that this says per week, that's not per week, it's per day.
Okay, good, thank you.
And yeah, scratch out commercial, I like that too.
Then we need to change it to,
So, and then just take off the
it's
last.
still 20. Commercial and employees is 18 to 20.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
If you want, however you folks want to do, if you want to leave in approximately 20, we're saying yes, fine. Just make sure it's per day because it's not per week. And then, then you would probably strike out the last part of that.
Okay, well, let me try it again. There will be an increase in traffic in and out of the existing entrance on State Route 9 by, and I would drop the approximately 20 trips per day, or about 4 spread throughout the day,
No, so we scratch
Drop
out
that
that
whole
last
last
part of
part.
it.
or about,
No, we scratch out the last part because we
Right.
changed it to per day,
Per day, period.
the first part.
okay, or, so we don't care about the about 4, okay?
Right, and I don't mean
Makes
to be a
sense.
stickler at all, but I say we keep by approximately 20 in there, the word approximately, because we just talked about how, you know.
Okay, now
You know?
put it back in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, right?
Okay. So, then B, the measures, and this came up because, I think the original review, we didn't see the site distance, but it's on there. The measured site distances at the project entrance on Route 9 are 650 feet plus looking south, and 1,500 feet plus looking north. We okay with that? Then my change is access to Cushing Road will be for emergency vehicles only. And that was a concern I had, but also the Public Works, or Road Commissioner, whatever his title is. Any concerns?
Can you say that again?
Sure. Access to Cushing Road will be for emergency vehicles only. Period, that's it, period. So, which is
So
what
the-
you're already doing, I think.
The only thing I would add, if you want to be technical, is make sure that it says from second entrance. Because if, for instance, Tom has to get down and deliver to the gentleman down at the end of the road, technically he can't access that because it's in these
That is
conditions.
my intent.
I know it's not the intent.
No, that is my intent.
Oh,
My intent is if you want to deliver to anybody on Cushing Road or otherwise, you go out on 9, and if that means that rarely you have to come back on Cushing, turning off a wider road.
The only thing I've done with that entrance over the last 14 years is plow it.
Okay, chief will still want you to plow it. So my intent is no, the only thing is, you know, if it's blocked and there's a fire, you guys either have to leave or the fire guys have to get in there.
yeah.
So it's
no.
emergency only.
I know that. What I'm saying is, if you really wanted to be narrowed down, not for the rest of the traffic, but if we put that in there, then technically he can't really go out his property and then go back in Cushing Road to serve that client.
So you'd add the word direct access.
Direct access.
I'm not sure I understand.
Because it's putting it on his property and his business.
Oh, it's a residential and business use.
No, I'm just saying that if we don't say it's for his second access or entrance, then technically he can't go and access, The rest of the town or public can do that. But he technically couldn't do that because his access in this says only,
Yeah, so.
I couldn't open the gate and plow it.
no, not the gate, not the second, not second access. I'm just saying in general, you are not really allowed to get on Cushing Road.
Okay, so if you look at the map, there's this driveway, it doesn't show real good on here, that goes out to Cushing Road. And John, what I think you're saying is they can't use this access onto Cushing Road for their business use.
That's what I'm trying to,
And what,
Correct.
you're being a little nitpicky, but
well, what he's pointing out is the wording of it. He wants to make sure that that doesn't prohibit him from driving out onto Route 9 and then going down and using
Oh.
Cushing Road to get to the other woodlot.
Oh, I see. The access road to Cushing, or to the site.
So
whichever
if
way
you
you
just
wanna
add
say
the
it.
word direct access.
put it in front, so, okay, let me
Yes.
try it again.
Yes.
Direct access
I
to
see.
Cushing Road.
That makes sense. Words matter.
Okay,
I just don't want somebody coming and saying, you can't access that.
Well,
You
exactly.
can't go on Cushing.
Ugh.
okay, so let's try it again. Direct access to Cushing Road will be for emergency vehicles only,
Perfect,
okay?
thank you.
So, I will make a motion, since I've got it written down here. So, traffic safety impacts, the proposed use will not create unsafe vehicular or pedestrian traffic conditions. Okay, I'm just gonna read through all three again. There will be, an increase in traffic in and out of the existing entrance on State Route 9 by approximately 20 trips per day, period. The measured site distance at the project entrance on Route 9 are 650 feet plus looking south and 1,500 feet plus looking north, period. C, direct access to Cushing Road will be for emergency vehicles only. So, I will make the motion that the applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with the criterion for traffic safety impacts. A second?
Second.
It's been seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please raise your hand to approve. It is done. Public safety impacts. The proposed use will not create public safety problems which would be substantially different from those created by existing uses in the neighborhood or require a substantially greater degree of municipal services than existing uses in the neighborhood. There are 4 findings on the updated one. I don't think this changed. So are there any additions, deletions, changes on those 4 findings? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that the applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with the criterion for public safety impacts.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please raise a hand to approve. Okay, number 4, environmental impacts. The proposed use will not result in sedimentation, erosion, or have an adverse effect on water supplies. Findings, the sawmill is being constructed on an existing cleared and gravelled surface. Wait a minute, I'm sorry. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the findings?
Do any trees need to be cut, or it's all cleared? Like
It's all cleared.
Yeah, okay. Sorry.
Seeing none, do I have a motion?
I will just note on here, because this is just conditional use, I'm fine, I don't have any additional comments, but for site plan, I would like to talk further about the wetlands and stuff.
Okay,
Just-
we need to decide if we want to do a site
Right.
plan visit or site
Yeah,
visit.
yeah.
Is that what you're talking? Well,
Yeah,
site
all
plan,
of
I'm
that
sorry.
kind of together, but no.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to the applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with the criterion for environmental impacts.
A
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please raise a hand to approve. Unanimous. Scale and intensity of use. The proposed use will be compatible with existing uses in the neighborhood with respect to physical size, visual impact, intensity of use, and proximity to other structures. And I'm not sure if I do have any changes.
We might,
Does anybody have any additions, deletions, or changes?
do we want to talk more specifically about, noise here? Or is that another one? That might be another thing. Oh,
The
it
noise
is,
is
the
its
next one,
own.
sorry.
Sorry.
We say there will be no impact on the neighborhood. I think that,
It's talking about scale and intensity of use.
yeah,
And it talks
I would
about
just like to
physical
change-
size, visual
Visual.
impact, intensity of use, and proximity.
visual impact would be existing trees surround the site, right?
We have a 100-foot buffer that's wooded from Cushing Road currently. And the other, one side, the Route 9 side of the property is lawn and a few ornamental trees. And then we have power lines the other 2 sides of the property.
So no residences can see,
No,
For
the
right
closest residence is like 1,500 feet away.
yeah, so maybe we add something like that for visual impact, just that, maybe not, if you don't want to, but
Say that again, I'm sorry.
something like there are no visual impacts
Well,
to any residences.
D is the closest residential structure is plus or minus 1,400 feet away.
May I ask a question about visual impact?
You may.
Is the new building taller than your existing building?
It is not.
So the other part of that is the existing building is actually, out front of the site has the most visual impact. This building is gonna be tucked further down, so, further down and in back. So the visual impact, I mean, you can make your own decision, but it really isn't changing.
I'll make a motion that the applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with criterion for scale and intensity of use.
A second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please raise a hand to approve. Unanimous. Noise and hours of operation. The proposed use will be compatible with existing uses in the neighborhood with respect to the generation of noise and hours of operation. And there are 3 findings. I have two changes that I would recommend. One is in paragraph B. Additional noise would consist of the sawmill and a generator, because it's both, as I said earlier.
Yep.
So additional noise would consist of the sawmill and a generator to run the sawmill. And B is C, the generator will be contained in an insulated steel structure, and all noise will be below the allowable threshold listed in the Durham Town Ordinance 55 dBA, I think it is, but per the noise study. And I change it from just generator to all.
Right, because the sawmill will be in an insulated.
So,
wall.
yeah. But it will generate some noise, I think. Isn't sawmill sound insulated?
The building's insulated.
Okay,
The goings-on is in the building. There will be a loader that loads a brow that feeds the material inside the building.
okay. I think what I'm trying to say that all noise, generator, sawmill,
Yeah, that's fine.
everything else, rap music played loudly cannot exceed the town standard at the property line.
You didn't know he was a rapper, did you?
Yeah, I did
know
not.
that either.
He impressed me that way this afternoon.
I don't think so.
I was
So-
just writing checks, that's all I was doing. I wasn't rapping.
Okay, so, is everybody clear on what I'm trying to say there? A motion, please?
I'll move that the applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with the criterion for noise and hours of operation.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded by Juliet. If you approve, please raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Number 7, right, title, or interest. The applicant has sufficient right, title, or interest in the site of the proposed use to be able to carry out the proposed use. One finding. Any additions, deletions, changes to that finding? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that the applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with the criterion for right, title, or interest.
Second?
I'll second.
Mark and Juliet, any further discussion? Seeing none, please raise a hand to approve. Unanimous. Number 8, financial and technical ability. The applicant has the financial and technical ability to meet the standards of this section and to comply with any conditions imposed by the planning board pursuant to subsection 7.5. 2 findings, any additions, deletions, comments, changes on that?
So we have the total as 500 approximately?
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
Additions, deletions, comments? Seeing none, a motion? Okay, go ahead.
I'll move that the applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with the criterion for financial and technical ability.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any further discussion? Seeing none, please raise a hand to approve. 5-0, and unanimous. Next one, conditions of approval, section 7.5. Planning board approval conditions. Upon consideration of the criteria listed in subsection 7.4, the planning board may by majority vote attach such conditions in addition to those required by other provisions of this ordinance as it finds necessary to ensure compliance with those criteria and all other applicable requirements of this ordinance. violation of any of these conditions shall be a violation of this ordinance. Before I ask you if you have any changes, I'd like to throw some out. Things I think we've already talked about. Traffic impacts will be limited to a total of approximately 20 trips per day. That's number one. Access to Cushing, number two is, access to Cushing Road will be, direct access to Cushing Road will be limited to, emergency vehicles, basically what we said earlier. Number 3 or 4, noise will meet the standards in land use ordinance section. George, do we know the section that is? What I'm trying to say is it has to be 55 dBA.
Just the standard for noise limits, and I'll give the proper reference.
Okay, so basically it has to meet the standards in the land use ordinance. And then my last one is, George, did you have verbiage for the fire protection? I think you offered up some verbiage for
Yes,
that.
that is already in the site plan review, but we can cross-reference it.
No, if it's gonna be in site plan review, I'm good. Chief's good,
Let me just make sure.
if everybody else is good,
Yeah.
okay.
Cover it in
Let me just make sure that's in there.
And that's okay, we'll get to that in the next step.
Do you mind reading your number 2 back, please?
I don't, and I also have another one after that. Traffic impacts will be limited to a total of approximately, instead of total. Traffic impacts will be limited to approximately 20 trips per day, which is, I think, what we agreed to earlier.
So.
Additional,
that's an
that's
So
additional.
the problem is it says increase on the other, and it doesn't say increase there.
We'll say increased traffic impacts.
Thank you.
So increased traffic impacts will be limited to approximately 20 additional trips per day. Any comments on, any questions on the others? I had one more. Exterior lighting will comply with land use ordinance as well, which I think you do, but just, so down the road, everybody knows what it is. Any questions, comments, thoughts from anybody?
Shouldn't we also put in the dry hydrant installation?
I'm good with that. Go ahead.
Two of them.
Again, I had drafted, and I think I circulated it in the email, a proposed draft condition of approval for the fire chief. Maybe it was in.
No, you said it, that's what I was asking about, if you had, I didn't, unfortunately, I don't think I brought that
I'll
up.
find it, but it basically references the NFPA 1142. They have to provide a fire protection water source, meeting NFPA 1142 that is acceptable to the fire chief.
Which includes those dry hydrants.
Correct.
So as long as that's covered, I mean, okay, yeah, I guess it has to be, you can't do it unless it has the two
Yeah.
dry hydrants.
Okay.
Do we wanna make that a condition here?
You can.
George, would you mind reading it? I don't have it in front of me, I probably do on my phone,
Yeah,
actually.
and I'm gonna have to find it as well. As I said, I
We'll
just,
see who finds it first.
basically, it said that the applicant shall, prior to occupancy, the applicant shall provide a fire protection water source meeting NFPA 1142, standards for suburban and rural fire protection, satisfactory to the fire chief.
Is everybody good with that as a condition? Do we want the, I mean, I have the exact words somewhere here, if I turn my phone back on.
Are we referencing the letter from Trillium to
No.
the fire chief? Is that what you're?
No, George
No,
prepared a
I
draft.
had sent it, I believe, as an email.
You did, and I'm not sure everybody got it. Give me just a second. Are there any other comments on anything else that we've talked about while I'm trying to pull this off and up and I can read it? for this one, would it be sufficient to just say, fire protection will be provided in accordance with the NFPA, whatever that standard is?
Yeah, that's what I just quoted.
Okay, so let me try writing that out. NFPA, what was the number, George?
1142?
11?
I think I found it.
As,
Here it is. It's on the board right behind you. For section 8.4.I, prior to occupancy, the applicant shall install a fire protection water supply meeting the recommendations of NFPA 1142, water supplies for suburban and rural firefighting acceptable to the Durham Fire Chief.
is everybody okay with that verbiage? Okay, then let me try making a motion since I've been taking notes here. All right. So, I make a motion to apply the following conditions of approval to the permit for conditional use. The project is to be constructed in accordance with plans, maps, diagrams, specifications, textual submissions, and testimony presented by the applicant and approved by the board, which already includes all of this. But increased, number one would be, number two, increased traffic impacts will be limited to approximately 20 trips per day. The next one, direct access to Cushing Road will be limited to emergency vehicles. The next one will be noise will meet the standards in the land use ordinance. The next one is exterior lighting will comply with the land use ordinance. And the final one is what's on the board, which is per section 8.4. Is that 1 or I, George? I, prior to occupancy, the applicant should install a fire protection water supply meeting the recommendations of NFPA 1142, water supplies for suburban and rural fighting acceptable to the Durham chief. Those are the conditions. The applicants have any concerns about them? The board?
Actually, this might be a little nitpicky, but in number 2, should it read increased traffic, instead of just 20 trips per day, should it be 20 additional trips per day?
Well, we say increase. But, yeah.
Oh,
I said
that's
that.
what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Again, it seems a little nitpicky, I don't know.
It's increased by.
Increase or additional, take out increase, put additional, is that, I'm easy.
Either one, yeah.
Any thoughts? So instead of increased traffic,
The number 1 catches it because they've told you that's what it's gonna be, and that's what the documents say,
so let's just leave it as increased?
Yeah, and the issue is, I mean, nobody's gonna be out there counting. On the other hand, if all of a
Unless there's a
sudden,
complaint.
if all of a sudden there's 100 trucks coming out of there, then it's clear that that's a violation, so I wouldn't worry too much.
Okay, so we'll just use increased.
Yep.
Okay, so does everybody remember what I've been reading off?
Yep,
There
we're-
were 6, is that correct?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. There are
Got it.
6.
Yep.
George, you're good? You're gonna
I'm
put
good.
these together for us?
Yep.
Okay, I will make the motion, the planning board grants conditional use approval of the expanded use of Maine custom woodlands to include a sawmill, subject to the adopted conditions of approval, which we've read off. A motion?
Do we need to vote on the one that,
Oh, you're right, I'm sorry. To apply the following conditions of approval, the one above that, to apply the following conditions of approval to the permit for conditional use, and
all those things you just read off?
the things I read, or I can read them
No,
again.
I don't think you need to.
Is everybody good?
I'm fine.
Yeah,
Okay, a motion?
I'll make.
Juliet, second?
I'll second.
Mark, it's been moved and second. Any further discussion? Want me to change it to anything else? All right, before Mark says anything, raise your hand if you approve. Next one, planning board decision. the planning board grants conditional use approval of the expanded use of Maine custom woodlands to include a sawmill subject to the conditions of approval that were above. A motion?
So moved.
Second?
So moved.
Juliet? Any further discussion? If not, please raise your hand. Okay, the next step is completeness review of the site plan application. And George put some comments out there. George, I think a lot of these comments you have, we've already discussed. Are we,
Yeah. I think
do we
you're
need to
good.
go over them again?
You've got a complete application.
I'm good with that. So we've got the site plan review checklist for these folks. Does anybody have any comments, concerns about anything that are included here?
Can I ask just an admin question?
Sure.
Is this something from George, or are we just going, like, do we have a prep like we just did?
So on page 40 of the packet, you have the site plan review draft findings for site plan. You need to go down through those too.
Okay. Thank you.
You've just granted the conditional use approval, now you gotta go through.
Yeah,
this-
now we're
the
in
same
the
drill.
completeness review of the site plan review
Yep, so it
application.
starts on page 40.
Okay, thank you.
So all the things that are required for that are there. So does anybody have any concerns or things that you think are missing, or
Yes, I would like to see a wetland delineation.
do we have that available?
Yes.
I mean, available is like tonight.
No, but if you put it as a condition of approval, I can submit it.
Okay, we need to think about how to do that, I
Yeah,
guess.
I'm gonna wanna look at it, you know, during the review, so it wouldn't really be a condition of approval, but we could go forward knowing we'll get it next time or whatever.
Okay.
I don't know what others feel.
Is there gonna be a next time? I don't think there is a next time. And I guess one question is, what is the purpose of it? Because the construction is occurring on an already developed portion of the site.
So my main concern is if that pond is a wetland and it's not man-made, then I think that it could require a permit to take out the water to the impact of it. I'm not positive on any of that,
To
but I think.
take out the water? You mean in case of a fire, you're saying removal of the water itself?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not positive. I think Mark could definitely opine on that.
It
For
sounds
sure.
like he has. Here is a thought, is that the issue on
Yeah.
wetlands?
I mean, I think I'm okay with, you know, it looks, I see the other wetland he delineated. But usually we see a delineation report for these types of things, so.
Well, here's a,
And I apologize that we didn't submit it, I thought it was in here, or
I haven't seen it.
sometimes,
If somebody else has seen
sometimes
it.
Mark is, unfortunately, he gets, he's getting a little older, so sometimes he doesn't submit all of his reports to us.
careful what you say about old people.
Whoa, hey.
I'm there with you, just so we're clear, so. And I'm also, yeah, we've been doing this for a while. Mark.
Well,
Anyway,
he-
so yes, he was out on site doing that, and I'll have to go back and take a look at that, but yes, I wanted to make sure we delineated all the wetlands and nail
Yeah.
that down.
Well, here's a thought on that, is that if we move forward with the approval of a condition for approval of the next step, the plan, could we make it a condition that you have to show, that they have to show that at some point in time before starting work, or, because I think what we've already said is if this pond isn't gonna work, you're gonna have to go somewhere else.
We're gonna have to build one.
You're gonna have to build one.
Yeah, those
So-
are, and I've talked to the chief about that as well.
So could we make it a condition that if it is a wetland, they have to build something else?
Okay.
We
can
have either
Can
two-
we try to clarify something? Okay, so my understanding is there is a pond there now.
Yes.
And so I don't think the issue is you can't take water out of the pond if it's a wetland.
So stop right there. You're saying it's a pond, yes. On this map,
Yeah, let me
per the
just-
survey, it says wetland.
I understand.
So
But-
that is the discrepancy I'm talking about.
I understand.
Okay.
Yep, but let me just clarify what I think the issue is, if it is or isn't a wetland. So as I understand it, the issue would be, if you were to create that pond in a mapped wetland, that requires a wetland alteration permit from the DEP if it's over 4,000 square feet. So it's not that you can't take water out of it, it's that you would be triggering the requirement for a wetland alteration permit.
So-
That's my understanding.
Yes, so similar, like what I'm worried about is if that is a wetland and whatever you're proposing could trigger some sort of permit. That's exactly,
Right,
yes,
but in
we're saying
essence,
the
it would
same
be
thing.
after the fact at this point, because the pond's already been created.
No, the pond's been here for a very long time,
They said it's a man-made pond.
long time ago.
Doesn't matter.
So
I
Yeah,
think
it
matter-
doesn't, no, the man-made creation of it is not the trigger. What we're proposing to use it for is potentially a trigger if it's a wetland.
Well, if it's a wetland, but if we, I guess the question is,
If it's not a wetland.
do
and it's
we,
a
well, what I'm
pond,
trying to get to is, what I'm hearing is that, and I guess it's everybody else, are we okay with accepting that it was dug and it is a pond? Or do we want to have some kind of report that says it's not, it's a wetland? In which case, if that's, is that the first choice? And I'm fine with it, calling it a pond, but the thing is, if in fact we're concerned it's a wetland, before, we've already said that at some point in time, they've got to build this pond. So you can't build a pond, and if the law says you can't build a pond in a wetland, you've got to go someplace else. So this is all dependent, see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, we're not building a pond, so just to be clear too, all ponds are wetlands. Just so we're
Yes.
clear on that whole, so the delineation of just the wetland symbol and being an existing pond and a man-made pond, and so, for instance, we're dealing with, on another site, we have a man-made vernal pool. But by DEP's regulations, it's man-made and it's always gonna be man-made, and the same thing with this. It doesn't run out after a certain period of time. It's always gonna be a man-made
Right.
pond, like ditches or ponds adjacent to 95, for
Right.
instance. So it's sort of man-made because you created,
If it's
Yeah.
man-made, it's man-made forever.
correct.
Right.
And then the rules are different for man-made
Exactly.
structures and ditches and things like that.
So if it's
So that's
man-made-
why, forgive me, I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's why we're choosing this pond in the volume and everything else, the convenience. It happens to be the low point on this that was created, man-made created a long time ago with the roads and things like that. So that's why we're trying to use this
I
pond.
think Juliet's concern is, and not to put words in your mouth, but you're looking for something that says this was not a pond, this has always been a natural wetland. Saying that right?
Something from Mark to that effect, he's
Sure.
reviewed it and this is his
Sure.
technical,
Well, that's why I'm saying make a condition of approval if you need the paperwork that says, as a checklist item, that says it's a man-made structure, then we can supply that.
Everybody else okay with
so
that?
actually first, are we doing a completeness review right now?
No.
We've skipped that?
You've-
Okay,
you've
we've already
determined it's
approved.
complete.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I asked
So-
if there was, well, I think Juliet had a concern that it's not complete because she wants to see the wetlands report, is that what I'm?
Yeah, that's what I
hearing?
thought we were on,
Okay.
is the completeness, and
Yeah,
then
I
I'm
mean-
saying it's not complete. But what I was saying then is we can go forward and discuss, check the completeness box, knowing that we'll get this info later. I'm fine with that.
So, okay, so any other issues on completeness?
No, I don't think so.
Anybody else have issues on completeness? I'm not seeing, okay, so do we consider, I guess, we have to have a vote, a formal vote on completeness?
Yeah.
Okay, so do I have a motion saying that this is complete, contingent upon getting the wetlands report submitted? Thoughts?
And we can deal.
Or we
we
waive
can-
the need for it, or whatever the
Yeah.
right term is,
Yeah, we can deal with the timing of the report.
in the next step.
At the conclusion with the conditions of approval.
Yes, okay. So I'll second. or
Okay.
yeah.
So it's been moved and seconded. Does anybody have any other comments? If so, vote to approve that it is complete, contingent upon the wetlands report?
By what date?
Well, we'll deal with that with the conditions of approval.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the next step,
And
is
who
when we're
who
doing
made
it.
those motions?
I
I
did,
seconded.
Okay.
yeah. Okay, now we're on to substantive review. And, so my thought on the wetlands thing is we come up with a condition of approval on the approval of that. But George, is there anything, I think a lot of the stuff that you already have on your comments are repeat from
Yeah.
first part of this? Okay, so we're on to substantive review and site plan approval. Draft site plan approval, finding of facts and decision. So all of the submission requirements are there. Does anybody have any comments on the documents that are listed there?
Okay, so I just included your last vote right there.
As number 16?
No, I assumed that when you were giving your completeness decision, I recorded it right at the bottom of page 40 on your,
I got you.
on your packet.
Yeah, but
Submission requirements,
under submission,
right.
where
So
did you
you've already-
include it?
You've already, you just voted, the applicant has met the submission requirements for site plan approval.
You put it in there. Okay,
Yeah,
I
so-
got you. So number 16 under the submissions is,
Exactly.
okay.
Yep, so you can go on to page 41.
Okay, I will make the motion, we have to, and we voted on that.
You already
You
did.
said that vote is done.
Yep.
Gotcha. All right, thank you. Utilize, so next, site plan review criteria. Did you guys understand that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Utilization of the site plan review approval criteria and design standards. Utilization of the site, there is a bullet there. Any comments, additions, deletions, changes to that finding of fact? Seeing none, do I have a motion? I will make a motion. The site plan reflects natural capabilities of site to support the development, buildings, and parking are located on suitable land, environmentally sensitive portion of the site have been avoided or protected, and natural drainage is maintained to the maximum extent practical.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Additional comments?
Under B, number 2, generating 20 daily vehicle trips, should
We're
that
not
say?
there yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm still
I'm
up on
so very
utilization.
sorry, I'm
Sorry.
sorry. I'm good with that one.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, I think?
Yes.
And any other comments? If so, if none, please raise a hand to approve. Passed. Adequacy of road system. The project is located on State Route 9 in Arterial with adequate capacity to accommodate the proposed development. The existing 10 employees generate an additional, okay, so here I think there are some changes that need to be made in number 2. The reason I'm reading this is because there needs to be changes. I think employees, we don't talk about what the, it's confusing, we talk about existing employees, 10, and then 20 daily vehicle trips and 5 trucks.
That's the existing.
That's
And
existing.
Number 3 is the proposed.
But then it says generate an additional 20 trips for a total of 40 trips per day. Those numbers don't jive. It's generating an additional 20 trips, but isn't it not now 58 or whatever
Well,
number we want
No,
to
he
use?
just-
That's the next one.
Next item down.
He's just adding in the first one, or second one, he's adding in the vehicle trips and trucks for the 40.
But it's not additional.
No, number 2 was an addition.
Can we take out the term additional?
No, because that's adding to the employees.
Yeah.
That's the combined of the current. Number 2 is all the current. You're getting thrown off by the word additional, thinking that it's the increase of the proposed expansion, but it's not in number 2.
I got you. All right, thank you. So then number 3, so I don't think I have, other than 68 is really 58.
That's it.
Unless, do we need to make it 60 because we're allowing 20?
approximately.
I'm sorry, I just,
This is the new map.
I feel like I want to vote, honestly. I want to vote. Is there a chance I could vote?
Just trying to be
believe me,
consistent.
we're not gonna give you 68. So, and then, anything on the other one, I'm hell bent that you're not gonna get 68. Okay, and it's well below the threshold. The only thing is this the place to add, we've already done it in the conditional use, the use of Cushing Road. We don't need to do that again, do we, George?
You will have it as a condition of approval, which is fine.
That's good. Okay, any other comments on adequacy of road system with the change, with the proposed expansion, vehicle trips per day will increase to approximately 60. Any other comments?
I will move the access roads have capacity to take the added traffic proposed, and the project does not generate peak hour trips and affect traffic safety on these roads.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other comments? Seeing none, please raise a hand. Vehicular access into the site. And I would like to add,
The direct
I would like
access.
to add the direct access thing, George. I think it's appropriate here.
Yep.
And you need me to go back and read that?
So direct access to Cushing Road will be limited to emergency vehicles.
That's
only.
it. So there's two findings there. Any others? Motion to approve?
I'll move the project entrances meet safe site distances, are appropriately spaced, and meet traffic safety standards.
Second?
I'll second.
Move seconded, additional comment? Seeing none, approve? Raise your hand, unanimous. Internal vehicular circulation. The site is relatively level with adequate room for safe operations. Oh, I don't need to read them. Does anybody have any additions, deletions, comments? Seeing none, motion?
I'll make the motion that the site plan minimizes cut and fill alterations and provides adequate room for safe operations. The entrance and circulation are adequate for the types of vehicles anticipated, and fire lanes around buildings are adequate and clearly marked.
Second?
Second.
By Mark. Brian made the motion, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please raise a hand to approve. Okay, parking lot layout and design. George, we have to vote on this where there's no parking is proposed.
I
Do we
don't
need a
think
motion
to.
on that?
I don't think you
Okay.
need to.
So note that we decided that no parking is not an issue. Utilities. There are 5 findings of fact there. Any comments on them? Additions, deletions?
Yeah, what,
Changes?
number 3, we talk about the ordinance level of sound being 55, I think, yeah, dBA, and then number 4, we say the generator ranges from 70 to 73 dBA.
That's right out of their application.
So,
It's right at the generator. like
Yeah.
You were standing next to it.
okay,
Not the property line.
yeah, right, so I don't know if we're good with just the way it's worded there, or if we
I
wanna kind
think it confuses it. I mean, I think,
yeah, so,
we talked about insulated, there's 2 things. On 3, the insulated steel structure, it's a trailer, and that doesn't bother, below but what we're trying to get to is what is it at the, property line? And in my mind, it's just better to go back to what we used earlier, which is
will not exceed,
combine all noise levels.
will not exceed.
Noise will meet, no, that's not it either. Well, noise will meet the standards of, in the land use ordinance is one of them. Is everybody okay with that, rather than try to, the 70-73 is a little bit confusing.
In the submission, the noise study that I did for the generator, within 250 feet, it was well below
No, I understand that.
the town ordinance.
Yeah, I'm not arguing any of your,
Okay.
what I'm saying is,
I didn't know how you needed to
at
clarify any
the
of that.
property line is it.
Okay.
I won't say that I don't care if you all go deaf because it's too loud in there. 'Cause that's not appropriate, and somebody's watching TV will give me hell about it.
Earplugs.
But earplugs,
So my recommendation, we scratch number 4 and just add in what we said before.
Which in your case, you said all equipment.
say that again.
In your case, you said all equipment. which
It's
was
all equipment.
essentially Sawmill, generator.
Everything that
Whatever
is
else.
leaving the property cannot exceed 55.
Correct.
And I would drop, the 3 and 4 and just go with the noise will meet the town
Okay.
ordinance.
Yeah.
Rather than argue about what the
Sure.
generator does or doesn't do, or what, is everybody else okay with that?
Yeah.
So number 3 would be, the noise will meet the town land use ordinance. Why did we say that before? George, whatever we said before, I'm just looking for.
Yeah,
it
I'll
here.
reference the ordinance section.
Yeah, noise will meet the standards in land use ordinance. And so, that'd be number 3, so the site plan, okay, the site plan, do we care? I guess
Well,
not.
these are just facts, that's what was in the application.
Okay, so the noise becomes 3, and number 5 becomes 4.
Yep.
So, try it again. Go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead.
Existing sanitary and water services are available on site, electrical lines are underground. Number 3 is the noise will meet, the requirements of the land use ordinance per section that George will add. And number 4 is the site plan shows the generator being located outside on the north side of the sawmill. Motion,
I will move that adequate utilities are provided.
second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other comment? Please raise a hand. Unanimous. Lighting design standards. Are there any comments on on this one?
I will move that the adequate lighting is provided for the proposed use.
Second?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, raise a hand to vote, please. Okay, signage, same thing. We recognize that no signage has been proposed.
There is a sign already, right?
There is,
Existing, that
yeah.
No
one?
new sign,
No
okay.
additional signs.
Yeah.
Okay, so fire protection,
Is the NFPA.
I would add what we did on the NFPA stuff.
Well, it's actually in the motion that's coming up.
Oh, it is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, those are the findings.
I will move that the water supply
Thank you.
will sustain fire suppression requirements of the NFPA 1142 water supplies for suburban and rural firefighting.
For number 1, though, it says there's no on-site water source.
So that's,
It's true today.
yeah, so you might want to add
Oh,
at number
yes.
3 that the applicant has proposed to build a fire, add dry hydrants to an existing.
Oh, that's what
pond.
you mean, okay. No working. on-site
Right.
water. Got it, okay.
So are you willing to change your motion, or is it the fact that?
No, I'll rescind my motion.
Okay,
And we need to add item 3 for the dry hydrant requirements, 2 locations.
applicant and that stuff about will do NFPA, whatever it is, in discussion,
1142.
chief. Okay, it's been moved, a second, with the new motion. I'll make a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, raise a hand to approve. General buffering standards, there's comments in here, any additional comments? Additions, changes, or deletions?
I think the CMP is to the north and south, right? Or
North and east.
East. Because you're kind of like a,
And
Triangle.
I own the property on the
Beyond
other
that.
side of each
okay.
Right, and it specifically says that.
CMP building.
Are we good with those 3?
Yeah, just that addition might be minimal, but on the north and east for CMP power line.
We'll add east,
Yeah. 'cause-
okay. I'll make this motion. So, number one, the developed portion of the project site are located approximately 500 feet from Route 9 with natural vegetation as buffers between it and Cushing on the south side of the property. The CMP power line is the abutting property on the north and east. Another wood products and processing facilities the abutter to the east. Also to the east, whatever. So, I'll make the motion that the applicant's landscaping plan adequately buffers abutters and public from use of parking, garbage storage, utilities, and outdoor storage and is designed for adequate long-term maintenance.
So there is no landscaping plan, right? You don't need one,
Correct.
right?
Second.
Sorry.
So, that's, discussion can come after a motion and second.
Okay, so it's been moved
Oh,
and second.
Okay.
Do,
So I'm just saying, like, instead of saying the applicant's landscaping plan, we should just say the current condition adequately
the applicant's
buffers.
plan adequately just drop landscaping?
Yeah, because there is no landscaping plan.
I will renew my motion, or I'll take the old one out, put a new one in. The applicant's plan adequately buffers abutters and the public from views of parking, garbage storage, utilities, and outdoor storage and designed for adequate long-term maintenance. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Raise a hand. Unanimous. Historic and archaeological resources, no historic or archaeological resources. We've recognized that. Financial capacity,
Hold on, so sorry. So that, is that in there? That's one thing I didn't,
do you have?
applicant has confirmed,
That was submitted as part of the
Okay.
original package.
Okay,
okay, thank you.
Yes, that's right.
back to 2009, okay. The
Yes.
applicant, so yet, nothing's gotten older since then.
A little bit, only me.
All right, the applicant submitted, financial capacity, the applicant submitted project cost estimates totaling approximately 500,000, I don't need to read those, there's two comments. Additions, deletions, or changes. Seeing none, I will make a motion. The applicant has adequate financial resources to construct improvements in keeping with the standards. Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Raise a hand to approve. Unanimous. Technical ability, there's two comments there, two facts findings. Any comments on them?
Sorry.
Seeing none, I will make a motion that the applicant has adequate experience with site development and has retained qualified consultants and contractors to complete the project in keeping with the standards. Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Seeing none, please raise a hand to approve. Okay. Okay, so on this one, before we get into the motion, a potential to hopefully resolve and keep this thing going, the question of the wetlands. Do we want to, before they get building permits, do we want to require them showing that that pond is usable, or come up with an alternative? The condition would be either show the study that says that is not a wetlands, the pond they plan to use, or develop a alternative in conjunction with the fire chief.
Well, the applicant has stated that that plan is available, so long as we receive it within a certain time frame, I think it would be adequate.
Okay, I think that's what I'm saying, is that before you get, I guess as a building permit, they would have to show it.
Yes.
Is everybody else okay with that? Or you don't get a building, or either you.
I thought it was,
So.
didn't I hear before occupancy?
No, that's for the fire.
That was a
That was something
separate
else.
thing.
I'm sorry.
Building, we're fine with building permits. So submit a report is what we're talking about specifically.
Yes,
Naming what the
the
wetland.
report you have
Right.
mentioned a couple of times.
The wetland report
Yeah,
that we're
right.
discussing.
Exactly.
So submit that and get.
And
the
if it
reports.
doesn't call it a pond, it calls it a wetland, then you gotta have,
Again,
work
a
with the
pond
chief
is a
to come up
wetland.
with a plan B.
So.
Well, no, man-made
Yes,
is the
A
thing.
man-made pond.
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
You got it.
Yes. George, where would we talk about that in our discussion that we just had? where would like wetlands and natural resources, all that come up?
Okay, so under the submission requirements, I believe it requires all wetlands to be mapped.
Okay, so what I'm saying is there is no discussion, like we just had a historic and archaeological resources discussion. There's no like wetlands, natural resources. I've gone through so many of these, but I feel like, no, I just went through it and I don't see one, but is that weird?
Utilization of the site,
Okay, that was the, okay.
they have to avoid environmentally sensitive areas,
Yeah,
which
okay.
by
So we're-
definition is wetland.
We're good? So let me try making a number 5 on this,
Can I give it to you? I've already got it.
pardon me?
Can I give it to you?
Yeah, it works for me.
Prior to issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall submit a wetlands report verifying that the pond is man-made.
Okay, everybody good with that?
I am.
What do you think, Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so we will leave it, so I think have I made the motion? If not, I will now. Motion made by, me. The planning board grants site plan approval of the main custom woodlands subject to the following conditions of approval to be noted on the site plan. The project is to be constructed in accordance with the plans, maps, diagrams, specifications, textual submissions, and testimony presented by the applicant and approved by the board per section 8.4K. If the applicant wishes to make any changes to the approved site plan, the applicant must meet all of the requirements for a site plan approval for that change part of the application. I.e., the applicant will go through the site plan review process only for the section of the permit they want changed. Per section 8.41, the applicant shall commence construction of the required improvements within 12 months of plan approval and shall complete said improvements within 36 months, and I will emphasize that. Per section 8.4.m, one copy of the approved site plan must be included with the application for the building permit for the project, and all construction activities must conform to the approved site plan. And prior to, George, would you read that again, so?
Yeah, prior to issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall submit a wetlands report and verify that the pond is man-made. And I think you might wanna also repeat the fire, protection provision that we have in the conditional use, as well as the Cushing Road access limitation.
Okay, so 5 would be what you just read.
Yep.
6 would be,
The fire requirement for the fire protection pond.
which is on the board, still, no, it's gone.
Yeah,
But
sorry,
the-
we'll just carry it over from the conditional
Everybody's good
use.
with, we're gonna reiterate
Yes.
that?
And because this one also deals with traffic access, vehicular access, we'll also repeat the Cushing Road access, direct access limitation.
Okay, there will be no direct access to
Right.
Cushing Road. The direct access to Cushing Road will be limited to emergency vehicles. Okay, so there are, that's, what, 7 of them total?
Yep.
So
I'll
it's
second it.
moved, seconded, any further discussion? Seeing none, please raise your hand to approve. Is there anything else? I think we're good.
It's been fun.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Eric.
No high fives? Thank you very much.
That's right. So remember to keep your rap music down.
You know, I wish I had that talent. I'd probably be a richer man, honestly.
Can I take a quick bathroom?
Yeah, go ahead. Do you think we need to take a quick break while Ruby Farms joins us?
Thank you, George.
Yep.
Thank you.
What are we into, the third period there, Brian?
Just start with the second.
Second, start us. So you've not been paying attention to this so far?
No, I have been actually.
We're missing a couple of people, so we'll just give it a couple of minutes. I would assume Mr. Kopp is not coming. Correct. He's not here. That's fine. We weren't gonna wait for him, so. Okay. Well, since it's really not part of the formal thing, I appreciate you've got your response to us, and I appreciate that. We'll talk about it here in a bit. just ask you to give a real, because I think we've covered a real quick overview. Well, two things, we'll start with the incompleteness from last time, we'll sort that out as our step one. God, I looked right at that blue light, it drives me nuts.
Oh, I know, it's like, can you imagine seeing that coming at you if you're flying a plane?
Do you wanna move this table this way and get out of the light?
Yes, it's
Don't look-
not a good, yeah.
Don't look into the light.
Don't look into the light.
Carol Ann.
Well, I think personally, I think anybody who shines a laser at an airplane should be, that should be punishable by death.
No, exactly.
Because, I mean, you could be killing, I mean, to me, that's
Kill
attempted
everybody.
murder. Whether it's negligent or otherwise, that's attempted murder.
Yeah. No excuse, period.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to think of 747 going down just because some kid wanted to blind, show off his laser. I think we're waiting for George.
to-
I can't even tell, what time is it there? I can't even,
20 after 8.
okay. That blue light is like in my left eye and I can't see it. Okay, what I'd like to start this piece with, before we go we get into the review of anything, is, would you just kind of bring us up to date? Thank you for responding, but you responded to the issues that we had with the incomplete application. Can you just bring us up to date with that?
Sure. Good evening. My name is Rick Meek. I'm with Teradyne Consultants. We're out of New Gloucester, Maine. The applicant is Mike Kopp in Durham. There were several issues brought up at the last planning board meeting. The letter speaks for itself. I can go through them each one if you'd like, but we've responded to the three that we were responsible for, the date of the original performance bond, the first 4 occupancy permit dates, and an engineering estimate for completion of the road in phase 1. The 2 other items were counsel from town's attorney, and I don't know if that's been completed or if we can move forward without those at this time, so.
Okay, so summarize the bond date, all that, you've got that covered. So the engineer's estimate, I understand there's been an increase in the engineer's estimate from 109 to 142 and some change?
Yes,
Okay. And when you're talking about in the process of updating the performance bond, you're gonna include that new engineer estimate? That the bond will be for the new engineer estimate?
correct.
And then the question is that bond acceptable to the town attorney? Was number 4, I guess. And so we've got the engineer estimate, we know it's higher. We need to sort out whether or not the bond that you want to submit is acceptable to the town.
Correct.
And so you're going to do that, or who's reaching out? Here's the challenge, gentlemen, is the town attorney is going out of business on the 31st of May. I'd like to keep this moving faster than that, but that is an issue out there. And so the town's got to find a new guy. So I guess my question is, who's responsible for this? And the next 2, working with the town attorney.
So we can we're certainly, the applicant is certainly amenable to pay the fees. It's whether the town wants us to initiate the contact or not, and we can certainly do that.
The answer is no.
You'll initiate for 4 and 5, you'll do?
Correct.
Okay, so I think that, okay.
That's-
So 4 and 5 are still, at this point, unresolved, but we need to move them forward. Okay, so the question then is, as the board, are we okay with moving forward on the preliminary plan approved, through the preliminary plan approval contingent upon the bond? The bond really doesn't kick in until, construction anyway, and then whether the legal authority is there to do that.
May I ask a question?
You may.
What changed on the cost estimate?
The price per ton of the asphalt.
So what I don't see in the estimate are labor hours.
It's included in that cost is the inclusion of the laying down of the pavement.
It's not clear. I'd like to see it more clear in the estimate, knowing what the breakdown is, or just say that it includes labor costs.
Okay.
Because the way it's worded is, it's just for material.
And I think there was, I don't remember the wording, but there was a statement to the effect that it went up because of, and that may have been an email that I saw somewhere.
And just to be clear, so the price is actually from a quote from a paver. And I just verified that the quantities matched what was needed.
Will you provide that backup?
Yep, can do.
And if-
So we'll
if
we-
the town had to rebuild the road for some reason, would the town need to, who's responsible for the engineering plans of what needs to be built? I don't see soft costs, those engineering costs built into this.
The road is already designed.
It is, okay. Alright. We just take them off the construction drawings that you provided?
That were originally provided for the original approval, yes.
Okay, all right.
Regarding your other point, John, I would think that we could get a response back from the legal team within the next, before.
Okay. I had sent out this response from the applicant, and I had indicated in there that, in my opinion, typically performance guarantees are dealt with for the final approval as opposed to the preliminary approval. This one was unusual because of the status of non-compliance of phase one. But I think it would be perfectly acceptable for the board to consider granting the applicant preliminary approval, and then having, now that they've indicated they're gonna fix the problem, and they're gonna cover all town costs associated with the fix, I think it'd be perfectly appropriate and acceptable to have them include that $142,000 bond, if it's verified by the town attorney, as part of their final plan submission. So, and also you've asked that we get an opinion from the town attorney that this can be, after the fact, approved as a phased subdivision, phase one being the previously approved portion, phase two being the proposed expansion. So that could be done as preparation for the final plan approval.
So, go ahead.
So, but the second point is that we are asking the attorney if we have the authority
Yes.
to grant
Okay,
after
so
the fact.
if the
permit.
town attorney determines that, yes, this could be approved as a phased subdivision, with the first phase already having commenced, that's kind of the issue, can you do this after the fact?
Yeah.
So if the town attorney, and again, recognizing we're trying to resolve a violation, and typically attorneys will advise the council to work with people to correct violations, which they're trying to do in this case. So if the town attorney determines that, yes, you can do this in order to solve the violation, then they're good to go in terms of satisfying you that you have the legal authority to do what you want to do. If the town attorney says no, once that 3 years completion date is up, they have to come back for a new preliminary approval. They can submit that with the final plan application for phase two, and basically get get the first project reapproved, and they'll just go through that process. So either way, it ends up getting resolved.
So what you're saying, I think, is that we should we should consider doing this in parallel,
Yeah.
instead of waiting to hear back from the town
Right.
attorney before going forward.
In part because the town doesn't have a town attorney now.
Well, we do until the end of May.
Until the end of
Right,
May.
there's no way
Another
they're
month.
gonna do
Oh.
this before they get done.
You don't think so?
Attorneys don't work that fast.
I don't think so.
Well, the guidance to the town manager last night was tell him what we need and see what we can get. Now, if I'm retiring.
I mean, if you're uncomfortable doing it that way, then we can just say, look, you're gonna have to wait until we get the town attorney's opinion.
My feeling is that we go on with preliminary plan decision, approval or not. With the, two issues is that we have to determine, it has to be determined if the bond format they're using is acceptable.
Yep.
Which, you're right, we don't need that at this point, but when we get to final plan approval, that
Yes.
would be good to know. And then the other question is it okay for us to, grant, can we, what was the term?
Yeah,
Phase-
Has the
phase-
authority to grant,
after the fact.
an after-the-fact exposure. So, my thought is we drive on with getting to a decision, yea or nay, on the preliminary plan, and then, I guess before final plan is approved, I'm thinking out loud, before building permits are issued, what,
It'd be for a final plan.
before final plan?
So the stages here is prelim and then final,
Yep.
right? Those are the two steps. So yeah, maybe we could, yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Drive on with the preliminary plan this evening, and then, do you understand what we're saying there?
Yep.
And then I guess the question is, there's also a request that, for us to extend the phase one, which I don't think we can do, because if we, talking out loud,
No, what you would do is you would
Oh.
recharacterize this project as a phase subdivision. Phase one is almost complete. It just needs, as I understand it, the paving. And so you're basically going to allow them to move forward on phase two, subject to completion of phase one by September 30th, whatever the date was that they had indicated. And then the new extension would go for the standard time limit.
okay,
Can you say that again?
Yeah,
thank you.
okay, so basically you will be, if you agree to go forward on this track, you'll be basically approving this project as a phased subdivision, subject to town attorney's confirmation, with phase one being completed by September 30th of 2024. And then phase two, which is the 4-lot expansion, would be subject to the standard time limit of 1 year to start, 3 years to complete.
And do we do that as part of the because all we're looking at tonight is a preliminary
Yeah.
plan.
And the preliminary plan just says, yes, you're gonna go with that approach.
So what you just put as conditions would be part of
Those would be
preliminary
part of
plan
the
approval.
conditions of
Okay, if we
approval,
get there.
And it's already, I did draft and circulate a draft preliminary approval for you to review.
Okay. So I think that resolves the issue of, for lack of a better term, the past, the history. It doesn't resolve it, but we have a way to go forward on with the preliminary plan.
Just, quick question, the bond or the estimate for completion of the road is for phase one.
Correct?
Do we have anything for,
No, that would
Phase-
typically be submitted for final approval.
okay, all
As two separate bonds.
right,
Okay.
But as I understand it, we wouldn't get final approval until would we potentially get final approval sometime later this summer? Or is final approval not granted?
Whenever you submit the final plan and have it all ready to go.
But final approval can be granted before that September 30th? Or
Yes,
only?
if the board agrees to do this in this way.
Yeah, so I think that's a good point, is if a preliminary plan is approved this evening, and if we get an attorney answer to the two questions, then you can submit the final plan at any point in time, which I don't know where you are on that, but we also have to have, an engineer review, peer review. So I don't think I'm speaking out of school, so if you're ready to go, you can submit it, the final plan for peer review, if you're comfortable with the preliminary plan approval and those two attorney decisions. Does that sound fair? And then, but if somehow when we get to final plan approval and somehow it's held up and you can't, well, the other thing you have to finish by September 30th is the road in phase one. Okay, I got it.
Speaking of road in phase one, with our potential change in our
Garbage
solid
pickup.
waste, it's an issue that we can't ignore. Because if Casella is talking about issuing 2 containers, 64-gallon containers, that have to be spaced 3 feet apart, they can't be set on the edge of Swamp Road. Now, I'm worried about the safety.
Will we get to that in the prelim review?
We can certainly
Well,
bring it up as,
It's, I think we need to.
yeah, we
Yeah,
bring it
I
up,
would
just
love
say,
to.
you have to show, what we're talking about is, I don't know if you feel, but town's changing is the way it does garbage.
Well,
And,
Casella is.
well,
We haven't signed up for it.
Yes.
Casella they are suggesting within the 18 months, because they have to buy a new mechanized trash pickup, they're gonna use the mechanical arms. They're not gonna have people because of working comp issues. But in doing that, those 2 containers have to be spaced 3 feet apart. So if you're looking at, we're talking about potentially 17 houses.
so it'll be 34 containers.
And I think, personally, I believe that a way to address that would be probably because Casella's not gonna go in on the property unless you allow them to. They don't go in on private roads.
They do, yeah, if you allow them
If
to,
you allow them to.
because
but-
they are at Bowie Hill subdivision.
Yeah, and I don't know whether that is something that
They're paying extra for.
you would want to do. If that is not acceptable, then I believe you have to create an area where those containers can be placed on the side of the road. Not on Swamp Road, but on Ruby Lane.
So let's get to
Even-
that when we get to the preliminary piece.
For sure, but even just 17,
That's
like,
a lot,
you know,
that's-
even just without this Casella thing, right? Like,
It's 50,
Yeah.
50 some odd feet.
Yeah.
for-
Yeah, so
Exactly.
I think
I know.
what we're saying is if we give you preliminary plan approval, one of the requests or requirements would be that when you come up with the final plan, how are you gonna handle this trash?
Right.
Based on what Alan just said.
Basically, Casella would have to be backing into Ruby Lane. They can't be sitting on Swamp Road. That'd be a huge safety issue.
And then, I've never gone past Swamp on garbage day. I do know they go on private roads.
you can pay them.
If you pay them extra to do that. I don't know what I guess,
Somehow we have to address it.
yeah, you guys need to come up with a plan, Mr. Meek, is what we're trying to say there. Okay, before the final approval, so,
So when you get there, if that's a concern, you could make a prohibition against putting any of the trash containers for this project out on Swamp Road. So that's, I think, how you could control it.
Make it a requirement.
Because it's a traffic safety issue.
Right.
So you could basically, as a condition of approval for the subdivision, prohibit they would have to come up with a different plan.
yeah, I think what we're saying is before the final plan approval,
Yep.
come up with a plan. As part of your final plan approval, come up with a plan. And we're not picking on you, I think that's something as
Well,
Alan says.
overall, I mean, any subdivision, I live right next to a subdivision, and it's at a dead-end road. So that is not an issue, because they stop right at the end of the road and they pick up, it's not a safety issue. But in looking at any one where there are through roads,
Right.
there's a potential there.
Okay, can we go back a little bit to talk about the prelim, the phases?
Well, I think we need to get into the prelim.
I know, but so if we approve the phase one, ahead of legal getting back to us on whether or not we can approve phase one, what are we?
No, you're not approving phase one. What you're doing is granting the
Them an
preliminary
extension,
approval
sorry.
for phase two.
We're granting them an
Subject
extension.
You're granting, actually, just for preliminary, you're granting a preliminary approval for phase two. And part of the conditions of approval for phase two is dealing with phase one completion.
Right, so I guess what I'm saying is, are they gonna go forward now and get that road? Are they given the okay to do, or are you waiting?
I think the intent is to pave the road by September 30th,
Right.
whether or not phase two is approved or not.
So that's a
That's-
separate action,
that's
but we
it.
can
But we
make it a
have-
contingent,
Mike
No, I
has
read
to
it.
do that.
yeah.
Yeah, you have to
He-
do that.
He's looking to correct the violation.
Yes.
So, but he'd like to move forward with phase two, but he understands that the paving has to be completed.
Right.
Okay, well, let's move on then.
And just to clarify, the ordinance says you cannot grant a final approval for any project that's in violation.
Right.
Yes,
So you could go forward with a preliminary approval on this project and withhold final approval until that is resolved, and you could say, we're not gonna do it until after September 1st, when it's done.
Got it.
but we don't have to. We could, in May, June, July, whatever, we could say you have final approval at that point, but building permits contingent upon
Yeah,
that.
you've got a lot of flexibility.
Yeah,
How can you make sure that it gets done?
Okay, and just one last thing, if the legal comes back and says, no, you guys don't have an authority.
Then they'll just have to submit a new
A full-
subdivision plan application for phase one, get it reapproved.
Okay, got it, thank you so much.
Okay, so moving on then, we are at completeness review of Ruby Farmview subdivision amendment to add 4 lots, map 5, lot 78B. Public comment will not be taken. So we have, make sure, we gotta get on to Ruby. So we have a whole bunch, we've gone through, we talked about the, getting the history fixed. Now the question is, have they submitted what they need to submit for completeness of the subdivision plan review checklist for preliminary plan submissions? And there's a list of everything they've got there. Are there any questions? Are they missing anything on subdivision plan completeness of the submission?
I did point out in the notes that they're supposed to provide a map showing where all the test pits are located. And again, I did address that in the draft conditions of approval, that they have to submit that.
You
with-
reference
with
this
the
as
final
sheet
plan.
C 2.0, but I didn't get a copy of 2.0. So if we can get it on the final, is it somewhere that I just didn't see it?
I may have made
I didn't see it on
I may have meant to say 2.1 rather than 2.0.
I didn't see it there either. If it's there, you can go ahead and show
No,
us.
we had a, I think we have the test pits. What I did was, and I think I made a mistake, is I showed well exclusion zones and well inclusion
Yep.
zones, or
Septic.
septic inclusion zones and well exclusion zones. I didn't leave the test pits on, so those will be added to the plan.
And I'm okay, because there's a very detailed, and when I say I, that's personally, but there's a very detailed septic study that you all did in terms of leachability and all those other kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and those test pits are available, I just didn't show them on the
Yeah,
plan.
I think so, that's kind of an administrative, we need to get them on the plan kind of deal.
Yep, because that confirms where the
Yep.
proposed well exclusion zones are.
So we can make that a contingent
Yep.
condition of preliminary plan approval. Anything else that you see that you would like to see, or that's not there, that you'd like to see?
Do we have this filled out?
Yes.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, on page, the
Sorry,
the submissions checklist is on pages
one.
49 and 50 of the packet.
Okay, well, I guess what the easier thing might be is what's missing.
The only thing I saw was that test pit map.
Okay.
Anybody else see anything which we could make continue, as a condition of approval?
Do we have variances? Or is that not the stage?
Well, they're asking for
You mean
waivers.
waivers?
I'm sorry, that's what I meant.
So, yeah, there are some waivers they're asking for, which would be the next step.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? George, do we need to vote on this?
Yeah, that they've got a complete
Is
application.
it with, I guess I will make a motion that it is complete on the condition that they provide the septic test pit locations with final plan submission.
Second. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please raise a hand to approve. Okay, so you are complete. The next step, should we do the waivers at this point, George? Before we get into preliminary?
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Okay, so you've requested, I think 4, but some of them you don't need to request. And I will find them here shortly.
On page 52, my notes indicated they were requesting a waiver for the requirement for on-site fire protection, water supply. And then also requesting a waiver for the requirement to provide a future street interconnection with adjacent parcels.
Okay, I've got the in your package, that looks like this from Teradyne. The first waiver they have requested is in fact for on-site water, and they've worked with the fire chief. The original subdivision was approved without it. Chief Tripp has worked with them, and his recommendation is that they sprinkle this, and I am in search of that verbiage. Each lot dwelling the statement is, each lot dwelling in the subdivision is required to be protected by a residential sprinkler system meeting the requirements of NFPA 13D as in dog. So they're asking for no pond and using residential sprinklers, which is what's happening with the original 13 lots. Do I have a motion to approve that waiver? Or,
I'll make a motion to approve that waiver.
second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any additional comments? Seeing none, please raise your hand if you vote to approve the waiver. It looks unanimous. The second waiver is,
Future street connection.
yeah, future connection to an abutting parcel. They're asking for a waiver from that. And their justification is the abutting parcel, tax map 5, lot 79, includes frontage on Swamp Road and Ruby Lane. Need a moment to look at it, but they're basically saying that they would not continue whatever that Ruby Lane extension, which I asked that you come up with a new name.
George, do you have these plans? It's best shown on the cover sheet, just showing the relationship of this parcel with the lot surrounding it.
Oh, this one here?
I think that's what you're talking about.
So the shaded parcel on the cover sheet is
They don't want to extend into this.
the shaded parcel on the cover sheet is the parcel that we're developing, and around basically 3 sides of that property is the property that we would need to connect to. But that parcel has frontage on Ruby Lane, close to Swamp Road, but frontage on Ruby Lane and also frontage on Swamp Road.
Is everybody okay with that?
So can you explain again, why do you need to connect to the, why?
It's just one of the, correct
The
me if I'm
ordinance
wrong,
requires.
George, the town ordinance requires or suggests future connectivity
Oh, for the remaining,
to
the
any,
remaining-
to any
For the
abutting
first
parcels.
Abutting.
yes, yes,
So if you
yes,
look right behind you up
Yes.
on the screen,
yes.
the issue would be, should that hammerhead be extended all the way down to the corner of the triangle for future interconnection with the next subdivision that comes.
You want, yeah.
And so you're asking for a waiver. So the request is for a waiver to not have to do that connection. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept that waiver.
Second?
Second.
Was been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please raise a hand to approve. I guess I'm supposed to actually read all this verbiage on it.
You're good, you're good.
Am I good?
Yep.
Okay, then the next one is a waiver for hydrogeologic assessment, which my understanding is you do not need a waiver because we have to take action to require it. So we're not requiring it, and I think
I withdraw the waiver request.
you may withdraw it. Okay, so we don't need to spend time on that. Okay, so waivers have been approved. I guess the next step is to start going through and/or finish the preliminary, the review of the preliminary plan approval, based upon at least one condition that we've already discussed. Do we want to drive on with that and see if we can get it? That would take us probably out to about 9:30-ish. Good to go? They're well into the third period, and the Cubs are probably into like fifth inning. Okay, so let's drive on with, are there any comments? I guess the first thing is, are there a quick review of what you're proposing, I guess, Mr. Meek?
All right, I'll try to be as quick as I can. So, Ruby Farm View subdivision located off Swamp Road and was originally approved in 2018 and included 13 lots for sale, and the 14th lot consisted of a 10.6 acre parcel retained by the applicant. In September of last year, we attended a sketch plan meeting and attended a site walk. Since that site walk, we've done some additional topographic survey, both of the road corridor, proposed road corridor, and the wetland flags that were delineated. Based upon the survey, the proposed roadway alignment has been slightly modified from the sketch plan to, 1, minimize the wetland impacts, and 2, to ensure that the proposed lots include 40,000 square feet of contiguous building area. As noted in George's packet, the applicant is requesting the extension of the time limit to complete the improvements for the original subdivision. I guess I'll skip over that. The applicant requested waivers. We've already reviewed that. The proposed amendment includes 4,735 square feet of wetland impact. The original subdivision included just over 7,000 square feet of wetland impact. As such, a new NRPA permit for the cumulative 11,787 square feet will be filed with DEP and Army Corps. As far as stormwater, we are over 1 acre of disturbance, but less than 1 acre of impervious. So what DEP will require is a stormwater permit by rule. And I don't know if the town has additional stormwater requirements beyond what DEP requires. If so, we'll provide what we need to before final. The lots will be served by underground electrical, individual wells, and subsurface sewage disposal, and as mentioned, we'll provide the septic test pits on the final plan.
Okay, Mr. Labarge, would you like to just go over your, minus all, we've already covered the bond and fire chief and all that stuff, so. Looks like it kind of starts with the peer review. Because I think we've covered everything else.
Yeah, that would be the question, and Mr. Meek just described the wetland impacts. There was some discussion in the Fisheries and Wildlife letter about habitat for turtles, but it references within 300 feet of a stream. And there are no named or unnamed streams on this property. And then I mentioned the septic test pit issue, and I did include a set of draft approval conditions for you to consider for preliminary approval, recognizing that you will be going through all of the findings of fact for the full subdivision review when they come back for their final approval.
Okay. So engineering peer review, I mean, you should expect that we're gonna do that, that's sort of a standard requirement. I would just say that, so there's nothing to preclude you from submitting your plans when they're done to start that. And Mr. Barge can hook you up with the engineer if you don't know who's doing that for us.
Do we do that?
Goral Palmer,
We do that, though.
we,
Not, no.
Oh, I'm sorry,
yeah.
but he can submit them to you.
Well, no, I'm sorry. The applicant can submit their plans directly to Goral Palmer.
Okay.
It's not like the legal,
Oh, okay.
So if it helps expedite the process.
Yep.
I,
we encourage
Recommend you
them,
do
we
that.
encourage them to do that.
Oh, okay, okay, cool.
you are encouraged. The DEP permit that George mentioned, that, we need that before we get.
For final approval.
Final approval.
Yep.
I don't know if you've submitted that, but.
I have not, because I just wanted to make sure that the plans were not gonna be altered by
Makes sense.
any comments, so.
Okay. This 300-foot buffer, the letter dated January 30th from inland fisheries and waterway, whatever they are.
Waterway.
Have you taken into consideration the comment about that?
Where in that letter is that?
George, you remember where you found that? That was in your notes.
You submitted a letter from Inland Fisheries and Wildlife.
Yeah, so that, yeah, okay, I see it. So that, yeah, they talk about 300-foot intact riparian buffer zones along all mapped and unmapped streams with no development or permanent habitat conversion within the zone. So we do not have any streams or mapped streams or unnamed or named
Okay.
within 300 feet of the property.
Okay. We talked about septic system test pit, and I think, so we kind of covered what George put down in his thing. Are there any other preliminary plan comments before we get into the approval process?
Yeah, you know me, wetlands. Vernal pools, none were found, I don't think?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, and no streams or rivers. And then I think it said there's a buffer of forest remaining along,
So,
right, no, right there.
yeah, so
Right.
the stretch of Ruby Lane, the existing Ruby Lane that abuts Lot 1 would be buffered, that 50 feet. Any trees other than a driveway connection would be, there's a driveway connection probably for, well, definitely for Lot 1 off of Ruby Lane, so other than the driveway connection, that forested buffer within 50 feet of Ruby Lane would remain.
And that's in section 1, or phase 1, or whatever we're calling it.
Well, the lot, or I'm sorry, this
This
lot.
lot right here.
Yeah,
14. You're talking
Lot
about
14, I'm
lot
sorry.
14.
Yeah,
I
I know what you
apologize.
meant. The driveway's probably gonna go in between
The
the
wetlands.
wetlands there, yeah.
Correct.
Probably right about there.
Yeah.
And is that written into the deed of each property parcel?
No, but probably could be.
What are we asking to?
Well,
What you would do is include on the recorded subdivision plan, that designation as a buffer along.
Well, the buffer is, but the driveway, were you asking about the buffer or the driveway location?
the buffer.
Yes, the buffer would be on the subdivision plan and identified as a forested buffer.
Like an
Right, so if I
encumbrance.
bought lot 1,
14.
how do I know that I can't do any clearing of that buffer?
It would be written, yes, it would be written into the deed of
Okay,
that lot.
so for lot 1, lot 2, and lot, it's not the 2, I'm
Well,
sorry.
they're 14,
It's
15, and 16.
15, 16, and 17? No, 14, 15, and 17.
Yes,
affected
yeah,
by
it's
that.
just a small sliver of 15 and a small sliver of 17. Along Ruby Lane.
Well,
So that will be written in those deeds, that it's taken off the plat, where, how does it end up on the deed?
When the surveyor writes the deed description, it identifies that.
Okay. Does
Is
that
it
answer the
flagged somehow? It's kind of,
The right-of-way for Ruby Lane is demarcated with monuments.
Mhm.
You know, granted, it's on a curve, but it's 50 feet off of that right-of-way line.
So the site plan, when you come in with an individual house site plan, that will show all easements and other things on the site plan? Do you do the site plans? Who does the site plan? When I come in for a building permit, I have a site plan. Who's drawn that?
For a
up?
house?
For a house, yeah, I'm sorry, a house plan.
Yeah, that, whoever builds the house would have that, would submit that plot plan to the code
Plot
enforcement
plan.
officer.
Okay.
Do you mean something showing like right-of-ways and other encumbrances?
Well, the plot
and
plan should
things?
show any places they can't build, like buffers and other things. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't know what the town of Durham requires for plot plan, so I'll have to investigate that.
Okay. But I mean, I think the codes guy has it, and we can make it a condition too, I guess, if, when we get to final plan approval, that it has to be shown on the plot plan. Thank you. Anything else? I mean, so does that answer the question?
I think so.
Mark,
That's it.
Alan, any other questions on that stuff? Okay, so then going over to the preliminary subdivision approval, and George, I've got a new, does everybody have the,
The only change, and I've got it, I think I've got it on the screen.
because I've got one dated 4/24 on the preliminary subdivision approval. And I forget, oh, it's highly, at the applicant's expense, the planning board will seek town attorney confirmation that the board has the authority. The second page of that draft preliminary approval.
Yeah, that's right on the screen behind you now. That's the language you just read.
Yeah, that's the one that.
Yep. So what I did was I circulated a revised draft set of preliminary plan approval conditions that added that statement. The issue on reviewing the bond is already covered, as we can go down through that.
Okay, so, does everybody have the updated preliminary subdivision approval draft conditions that George, or should we just, can you read them off the screen? I mean, I'll read them and you can follow them off the screen, I think.
It's a two-page document, right? That was-
It's a
Yeah,
two-page
that
document,
is.
yeah. And the second page has 4/24, today's date on it, at the top. So I'll quickly go through these in case folks are looking, but the first one is that we're gonna request technical review for the engineering plans, storm management plans, and engineers' estimates for project construction.
I would add, I don't know why it's not in here, I think we did this last time, review of permit, wetland,
Say that again.
I don't know how to call this.
The first phase one road is what you're asking for bonds?
No, the planning, the first part, where, am I in the wrong spot? Right here,
Gotcha.
in this spot, add something for, review of like wetland permits, things like that.
Well, the applicant has submitted a wetland delineation,
Mhm.
and
He submitted, it's on the map, there's no report.
There's no, did you not include the report?
Yeah, the report's
Oh.
in the packet.
I thought
Oh,
I saw it.
sorry, what, sorry about that.
It's actually,
Attachments 6 and 7 are the wetland delineation letter and the vernal pool assessment.
No, okay, a letter, right?
so you sent a letter, they were flagged, and then you put the flags on on a site plan. That's a question.
Yeah, so Mark Campton did a wetland delineation.
Yep,
He flagged the wetland limits. He identified, he verified that there were no vernal pools. I think that's in the second letter. We went out and did survey and picked up the flags, so that we could verify that we had 40,000 square feet of contiguous area in each lot.
And you, those locations, the wetlands are off his flagging.
Correct.
yeah, okay. So this is great, thank you. Sorry, I didn't see that earlier. But what I would recommend, just like we did last time with Goral, is that he did review the wetlands and he reviewed any necessary like permit, like impacts or permits or anything like that.
Well, I think the other thing you gotta remember is the last one was, on the Hollowell Road subdivision you're referring to. And there was
Yeah.
a stream crossing there, which was concerns about
Yeah,
the impacts on the wetlands of the stream crossing. So I think this is a little bit different, and I think the issue is, are you concerned with the accuracy of the wetland delineation? And I guess you gotta discuss as a board, are you gonna require as a typical, the engineering design is pretty much a standard thing for do that, but are you going to start requiring a independent wetland specialist to do a check on the accuracy of their wetland reports?
did Goral didn't do that for the
No,
last one?
no, they did not do a wet confirmation, and they were also looking at whether or not they needed a state stormwater permit. This applicant is conceding they need it.
Yeah.
So there, that one was like a special situation.
So it's a great question you ask. Isn't this, is this the same project that had the wetland issues?
Yes,
So,
and that was filling of wetlands.
Right,
mhm.
it's kind of,
Yeah, so the original subdivision had just over about 3,300 square feet of wetland impact associated with the road.
Yep.
During construction of Lot 1, there was some wetland impacts that, so an after-the-fact permit was submitted to
Yep.
DEP, and that was about a little less than 4,000 square feet of wetland impact after the fact.
Mhm.
So the total after-the-fact permit was,
7.
inclusive was 7,000.
Yeah. And the issue there wasn't that the wetlands weren't mapped, it was just that during construction, the
The fo-
mapped wetlands were impacted
Correct,
more than what was proposed.
correct.
Okay, yeah, so
That's correct.
yeah, so, I mean, I don't know how much more cost it is for Goral to do what they did before regarding the, you know, wetland and stream review.
Again, I don't believe that Goral Palmer did any confirmation of wetland delineation.
It was more of like a permitting check, is what they did.
Yeah, but again, part of that was their applicant was arguing that they did not need an Army Corps permit. And then that got resolved, so Goral Palmer said, we think they needed an Army Corps
Yeah, I think that was the
permit."
question, is they,
Yes, I remember that. I
We-
just wonder
Yep.
if we should be like picking and choosing here, or if we should just tell Goral Palmer,
Well,
when we
no,
have a
if,
subdivision.
but again, in that project, there was, and even on the Day Road subdivision, there was a question about that wetland, whether that is or is not, and the town hired an independent wetland. So if there is a question of the
Yeah.
accuracy, as there was on those two projects, you certainly can get a wetland specialist. And Goral Palmer can get one,
Yeah.
but that's
I
not.
can't recall, we had the site visit last year, right?
right.
Do you guys recall?
Yeah, there's a lot of wet areas.
There is a lot of wet
I know.
areas.
but
So-
they show a lot of wood areas on the
Yeah, they
map.
do, but like, who are we to say? This is why we hire like a Goral Palmer. or
But they've
something.
got a qualified wetland specialist, so if you consider you are questioning whether the accuracy, as it was on the other project, for good reasons. They're saying we don't need an Army Corps permit across the stream. That raised a red flag, so. But again, if the board wants to make it a standard practice that every wetland delineation is gonna be peer reviewed for accuracy, you can do that.
I'm comfortable with, they've hired the guys certified, licensed, the whole 9 yards, so I'm comfortable that, you know, he's delineated, you know, that his work is, you know, we should trust his work. And it doesn't seem to me that the applicants tried to cover, hide, or, you know, overlook or shrink.
Or arguing that they don't need
That they
permits.
don't
They
need-
said they need the permits, then they're
Yes,
gonna
I
get
guess
them.
I'm just, it's like the, I don't know how to say this. I guess we just pick and choose, like at day, like we went out there and we said, oh, that kind of looks like a wetland. We had a wetland specialist with us that day, that's how that was picked up. For other projects like this one, I walked it, other areas looked wet, but, you know, are we just gonna like, you know, pick and choose versus like kind of making it a part of our review? And I don't think it's that much more and I think Goral can do it, to add to their scope. We don't have to do that, but
I mean, I guess I'm comfortable with, and, stop talking to your show, I'm comfortable with this, this firm, you know, like I said, they're licensed,
well, Dane
certified.
had a licensed and certified one too.
I get you, but I mean,
I'm fine, I feel like it's not much work to add it in, but we don't have to. I can't recall any specific areas that looked concerning on site, but it was so long ago, I'd have to look back.
and
I'm
again,
good
I
with-
think I think they've covered a lot of areas when you look at the site plan they've
Yeah,
submitted.
there's a lot of wetlands on the site.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not like, you know, there's nothing out there or whatever. I guess, comments from anybody else? We can say it's, you know, it's not a lot of money, but, you know, not a lot of money can sometimes add up to multiple not a lot of monies.
Maybe for future, we could maybe talk to Goral Palmer and just see what that would look like to add it as a standard.
And if it's necessary.
Yeah, and when, yeah, hear more from
And
them.
that's certainly something we can, as
And
we're
again,
talking
yeah,
about
it's kind of
changes.
like that hydrological evaluation. If you had a tight subdivision on very poor, what appear to be very marginal soils, you would, because of the concern and the particular proposal, you would get a high-intensity soil survey to say, can they put those septic systems that close together on this soil? But generally, 2-acre lots, you don't have a high-intensity soil survey, so that's how I see it.
Mhm.
If there's some wetland issues, like they're pushing the limits, then you would say, okay, we want to have that peer review.
Right, but my thing comes back to who's to say they are? Us? Like, you know? It's like-
I guess I trust, you know, somebody's license is at stake. I'm not a big fan of peer review, to be honest with you, when licensed engineers are doing that, but I mean, that's a requirement we have. And throw that out there that,
I'll just add that we submit to DEP and the Army Corps for any wetland impacts and,
Right.
I mean,
You guys are getting a permit too, so that's different
Yes,
as well.
that's right.
Like you are going for a permit, whereas, like
They
you mentioned,
were
they
arguing they
weren't, so.
didn't need to, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm fine, I just.
unless there's a consensus, we should do it here. Ready to move on. Are there any, number 2, the applicant shall make the following changes. Do we recommend any changes? You thought of any that need to be made to because of the opportunity to let them know before they get to the final plan stage?
Just getting back to this vegetated buffer, is it supposed to be existing vegetation that
yes,
isn't disturbed? Or,
yes.
so I'm looking at your transformer location for lots 1 and 2. How are you gonna place that underground wiring without disturbing any of that buffer?
It would be in the right of way. I don't show it in the right of way, so yes, I'll have to move that, that conduit into the right of way, and then it would cross at the same location as the driveway to lot 1.
Okay, so the intent is to leave whatever vegetation is existing in place and undisturbed.
Yes.
Okay, so,
So is that, you just, said for number 2, you did say that you need to make a change for where the conduit goes.
Correct.
So,
the
for 2,
transformer also.
Yeah,
not just the conduit.
I'll look to move the transformer further onto lot 2 to avoid that buffer.
so I'm writing down move utilities.
Move transformer onto lot 2.
Okay. That's 2A. Any other changes to the plans? It's a good catch. Let's move on to 3, and if we think of something as we're going along, so per section 6, what needs to be on the engineer's construction estimates, the completion of Ruby Lane, we discussed, we've got an engineer estimate for that. And then for the new, that's phase 1, phase 2, new access road, electrical service, stormwater management, and erosion and sedimentation control system. I think those are our standard, this is what we require for engineer estimates. Any other comments? Number 4, per section 6.7.c.6, the final application should include a map showing the locations of sewage disposal test plan. So what we're basically saying is, this is where we talked about making a condition of approval. The next one is part of our ordinance, out of our ordinance, that basically says that the timelines for final plans and completion and so on and so forth. Any questions? This is straight out of the ordinance, George? that
Yep.
Number 5? Okay, so 6, we're kind of back to the after the fact approval. But the planning board will consider a phase subdivision approval with completion of phase 1 by September 30th, 2024. And phase 2 will be subject to the standards that are in the land use ordinance. And also that this is where the applicant's expense, the planning board will seek town attorney confirmation that the board is authority to approve the project as a phase subdivision subject to. And I guess 2 questions. One is, who's actually reaching out to the attorney? George, you're gonna do that?
Yeah.
And then did I miss the bond? Reaching out to the attorney to get approval on the bond.
That'll be in number 11.
Keep going, John. Okay. Any other questions on that one? And so the area's intended for vegetation on the final plans and buffers.
You might want to amend that to include along Ruby Lane, required buffers along wetlands and Ruby Lane.
Okay, areas intended for vegetation shall be shown on the final plans to support the stormwater and comma, required buffers along wetlands and
Ruby Lane.
along Ruby Lane.
Yep.
Okay, so per section 6.17.c, areas intended for vegetation clearing shall be shown on the final plans. Okay, to support the stormwater management plan assumptions, comma, take out and, required buffers along wetlands shown and along Ruby Lane on the recording plan and referenced in the plan notes. Is that somewhat good English?
Mhm.
Okay. The next one is your street name and all the requirements, it's kind of straight out of the ordinance. Delineate, note the limits of tree clearing on the final plan. So a lot of these are on the list of things you have to do, but we're repeating them. Is 10 a repeat of what we talked about earlier?
It is,
Is
however,
10 are 10 and 3 the same?
it adds the letter of commitment from a lending institution. So the earlier one was the engineer reviewing those numbers to make sure they're accurate. This one is saying they gotta provide the engineer's cost estimate along with a letter of commitment for
Okay.
that amount.
And then number 11 is about the bond, in the form set, and so you're going to give us a copy of the bond, us, the town, and, or at least the form, I don't know that we need the,
What their proposed performance
Yeah, what you
guarantees
perform,
are.
to Mr. Thabarge, and he
We'll have
will
the town attorney review.
do it, and since we're on a clock, or probably sooner rather than later. Okay, is there any other, did I miss any of the things we'd like to see going into the final plan?
Do you wanna have something about the deeds to reference the buffers? Which could be number 12.
Can we include that in 7?
Well, it's saying to show it on the plan, Brian, you were kinda raising the concern that just cause it's on the plan, they don't see it.
Yeah, I was just gonna add deeds, but how do we wanna say it?
It would just say that all required buffers shall be referenced in the deeds.
Applicant, do you see any problems?
Not at this time.
Okay,
Again, these are just preliminary approval conditions. When they come back for the final, they can propose something, whatever they wanna do.
okay. Well, this is as much to say this is what you gotta do for the final.
Yeah.
When we get there is anything else. Anything else, folks? Are you good? I guess I should ask the applicant, are you good with everything else we've discussed here?
Yeah,
Applicant's representative?
yes, I am. I'm hesitant to ask, but is there some condition about the solid waste that you're
We
going
did,
to?
thank you for reminding that.
I mean, if they're gonna be doing the paving, if I was gonna be doing the paving, I would want to address it at that time, if that's a potential issue a year down the road.
So 13 with the applicant is to provide a plan for solid waste disposal.
I think yes.
Right.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Well, I'm gonna pay for it if I don't, so.
We will remember between now and the final
Okay,
plan.
what'd you do about it? What do you mean?
And I'm sorry that you're the first, but it is an upcoming issue that we've gotta sort through as a town.
And
I don't know what the,
container locations is the issue, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so they are to submit a plan for solid waste
You know,
disposal
some people
container
say,
locations.
well, why are we doing it? Casella is the only company that actually applied for our request for a quote.
Could their association contract with a different waste hauler outside of the town?
well, that would be the question, is if you have a private,
To get it right.
somebody different, and you wanna do something different. I guess I think, George, your
That's
verbiage
true.
cover it was, we'll provide a plan for, with solid waste.
disposal container
disposal.
locations.
Because if it is, dumpsters or what, you know, we'll have to approve it, but you wanna put dumpsters inside in an enclosed area, screened area, if that makes more sense, and your waste guy comes up and picks up the dumpsters. I guess you've heard our concern, is how are you gonna, for 17 lots, how are you going to handle it? And if you're doing it and don't include recycling, then it's only 17 instead of 34. But you just, I guess we're telling you to come up with a plan,
Understood.
so. Is there anything else before we vote? I guess I need a motion to approve the preliminary subdivision approval. Anybody want to make that? And maybe, George, I can run through with your help the changes we've made.
I think we've got them.
Okay, if you, I mean, you want to go ahead and read them off before they make the motion, or
No, I think we've had.
is everybody comfortable with all the changes?
Well, I'll make, yeah. you know.
There we go.
No, we are. You added 12, right? Another one.
12 is the
13.
buffer references in the deeds, and
You showed on the deeds.
13 is the plan
Yep.
for solid waste
Yep.
disposal. You added Ruby Lane buffering on number 7. The amended one that I circulated had the attorney review of the
Deeds.
phase subdivision, and then under number 2, you added moving the transformer onto lot 2.
Can I ask a question about solid waste in the site? So what if they propose to put it closer to swamp? Like, we're reviewing this right now, right? Like, what if their proposal is like a turnaround or something off of, like, the earlier proposed project?
That'll be their plan.
Like, but I mean, that would be fine.
We would have to
even though
appro-
it's on a different, like,
Yeah, we would have to,
because that might make the most sense, right? That would capture all of them, possibly,
Yeah, I
versus
mean,
just this one area.
my thought is part of the final plan approval would include your trash plan for the subdivision.
Yeah, and
For the
mine,
entire thing.
Yeah,
But no,
Yes,
you,
okay.
yeah, I'm talking the
Yeah,
entire
yeah,
thing.
yeah, okay, sorry, thank you.
Okay, are we good with the motion, or we,
What was the motion?
I know you were making it.
grants preliminary approval, subject to these draft conditions.
All of the things that we just talked about,
As amended.
as amended.
Would you like me to take a shot at it?
No, he just said it all, can I just make
Oh,
a
are
motion
you-
that yes?
You can say so moved, works that way.
Oh, second.
Okay, AP,
Moved.
It's interesting, when I actually talked to Casella, one of the drivers, I says, what would be better, what works best for you? So I like to have it at the end of the road, because it's much more efficient for them going in and out, 'cause they can get it done much faster versus having to stop at 17 houses individually. But that's their issue, not ours.
Yeah.
Which becomes yours.
And the queen of solid waste committee is sitting next to us, so she will take these comments back to,
If we meet.
if you ever, that came up again last night. Okay, so move second and further discussion. Seeing none, please raise a hand to approve. Okay, you've got your driving mission.
thank you for your patience.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Next, so we cleared the deck for next week's meeting. So we're gonna talk about ordinance two things in my mind, ordinance changes. And then, George, if you would mind just giving us a little discussion on codification, just kind of,
Yep,
we've
that's
got
part
the
of
money, basically how you see it going forward. And, because George is, I think, the town's liaison, and timeline on that, and the impact. Tomorrow, George, you're still on track to, okay, so May 7th, I think I've mentioned this, May 7th, the select board has invited the chairs and vice chairs to a meeting with them. I suspect that in their goal is prioritization. I think this select board is gonna have a more proactive or active role in this and help set some prioritization guidelines, although I'm sure they will still look to the committees and commissions and so on and so forth. So what I'd like to come to, George will provide what's kind of already been thrown out there, a couple of solars, a resource protection, I forget what else, historical commission. So what we need to come up with next week is, do we see what's on that list as a priority? And/or is there something else that we want to add, say this is a higher priority to us? For instance, you may not know this, but the way the ordinance is written, you cannot dig a new grave in a cemetery. Because the ordinance is written that you cannot excavate within 25 feet of an existing grave, so I guess I have to go dig up my mother-in-law. Stop saying that, John. Anyway,
That's interesting.
that's a little thing, but that's what we're gonna talk about next week.
And March 1st, May 1st, right? That
Which is
Wednesday,
next
the
week.
first Wednesday?
Yeah, next Wednesday.
Okay,
So, motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Any discussion? Raise a hand to approve. Please turn your mics off. I should have done that a couple minutes ago.